What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was Ogun? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Some people are mean, harsh, unkind. But one is not born thinking, I want to be bad. No, one is born with their own desires first, without a care in the world, only knowing their own needs and wants. Their own wishes and dreams. Their own selfishness and cravings. Humans are born broken, but they strive to be truly good. And until their footsteps disappear in shifting sand, their desires will claim the day, whether they be good ones or bad ones. Sakumo walked along the streets, his lazy attitude seemingly floating in the air. His son held his hand, casually walking by his side. Kakashi, he said, looking down to his son. You're going to be starting the academy pretty soon, are you excited? He asked, starting a conversation. Kakashi nodded, a smile forming on his face. He wore a face mask, something he had always done, so it was hard to tell if he was smiling or not. His father had learned to read his eyes, however. I'll get strong, father. Just as you, Kakashi said, looking back to the bustling Konoha roads. Well, keep hold of that determination, son. It'll get you far. His father smiled down at him, appreciating the humbling respect. Yay! Kakashi stopped suddenly, his eyes freezing and focusing on something that seemed to be non-existent. His eyes widened as they looked up to his father, then glancing down at his hands. Father, he said shakily, looking up at their conjoined hands. Are you alright, Kakashi? Sakumo asked, kneeling down in front of his son. Kakashi? Kakashi's eyes began to tear up, his lip trembling under his mask. He stuttered, without any further mumbles. He reached out and clung to his father's chest. His hands gripped his shirt, his forehead leaned to his heartbeat. Sakumo just stayed there, giving a loving smile as he placed his chin on the top of his son's head. It's okay, Kakashi. Kakashi soon pulled away, wiping his eyes with his arm and gave a grin. Finally he thought, taking a deep breath and clinging to his father's hand once more. Unlike what he thought, Kakashi remembered everything that happened. He's lived this life and his past life. He remembered it all. His smile never faded that day. He had finally awakened. Kakashi, you just think you're better than everyone. Obito challenged, leaning into Kakashi's face. It was their last day at the academy and the rivalry between them was simply fate. Obito began to scrunch up his face, and in a small voice pronounced, "Oh look at me. I'm Kakashi and I'm just so talented." Kakashi just shrugged. Your words not mine, he said. I'm glad you think so highly of me, Obito-kun, he teased his friend. The hyper Uchiha recoiled and waved his hands in the air. Gah, Kakashi, you perv. He just shrugged again in response and looked up as the teacher entered the classroom. Shush up chatterbox and listen to the teacher. Kakashi pushed his friend's face out of his way and sat down. Obito, with much reluctance, backed off and sat down behind him. Peeved, whatever, he grumbled. Okay class, settle down. I know you're excited about graduating, but you've got to sit still for one day more. The teacher stood in front of the class. He wore a blue bandana around his neck and his ninja headband across his left arm. Now please, be seated. Everyone else who was standing sat down and waited patiently. Though, one thought was going through all their heads. Ninja, since you all have graduated yesterday, I'll be announcing teams. We'll go from team 1 to 10. Further instructions will be announced when the teams are organized. No arguments either, you've been selected by the Hokage himself, he said. Team 1 will consist of Might Guy, Saritobi Asuma, and Yuhi Kurenai. Team 2 will be Hitaki Kakashi, Nohara Rin, and Obito Uchiha. Team 3 will be Kakashi drained out the rest of the words and gave a crooked grin to Obito, though with his mask on, he doubted Obito would notice it. And the fact he was only staring at Rin was a large part. Of course he'd be staring at her, he thought with another smile. He was getting soft, but technically he was a 50-year-old man in a 12-year-old's body. And that was about the last time he'd ever think about that. With a shudder, Kakashi noted that everyone had already gotten up and left the classroom, waiting for their own sensei. Had Kakashi not come from the future and not lived this moment before, he would have no idea what just happened, but luckily he did. And that way Obito would still think he actually listened to the lesson. Like he should have. Wait, where's everyone? Obito asked, standing up and glancing around the class. Kakashi gave an incoherent chuckle. Well, if you hadn't been staring at Rin your whole life, maybe you'd actually know. We're meeting Sensei here, Obito, Kakashi stated matter-of-factly. Rin nodded, a faint blush on her cheeks. Kakashi's right, Obito. Weren't you listening? She asked. Mumbling, Obito scratched his head and sat down again. I'm so sorry I'm late, this usually never happens, a voice sounded from the doorway. This instantly brought a full-out grin on Kakashi's face, but he quickly hid it. He couldn't let any misconstrued things get tossed about with his attitude. A tall blonde stepped into the classroom. I'm Minato Namikaze, Team 2's squad leader. It had been years, 8 years in fact, since Kakashi had awakened. He was an Anbu member, Obito was Jonin, Rin worked at the hospital, Minato was Hokage. Everything was lined up, as was everything lined up for tonight. The night the Kyuubi would attack. The night that Kakashi would have to tell Minato and his team about his past. Before this life, it wasn't something he stressed with. After Rin and Obito's death, in the old times, he learned to live in the moment rather than be caught up in it. But now that the day is actually here, he couldn't help but constantly get an uneasy feeling in his gut. What on earth was he going to say? Hokage-sama, Minato-sensei, Kakashi. You know I don't like the formalities of this job, Minato said lightly as he leaned forward on his desk. What can I do for you, Kakashi? His smile seemed to make it harder for the words to come out, but he knew that this was a need be. Otherwise, many people would die. Listen, there's something I've been hiding for a long time, Kakashi admitted, taking a seat in front of the desk. He put his hands in his pockets and nervously played with the lint inside. This won't make any sense, but I need to say it. Otherwise, many people will die tonight. Kakashi saw Minato's attention suddenly zapped to a full 100%. Who's in danger? He asked. Is it the Uchiha clan? No, nothing to do with the Uchiha clan. Well, yes and no, I mean, it's a long story. Kakashi took a long breath. I'm from the future. Suddenly Minato's face dropped to a placid expression, but Kakashi continued anyway. If his sensei thought he was crazy, he might as well hear him out. Where I come from, it's a much different place. My father died on mission suicide because he had chosen his teammates over the ninja code. The entire Anbu Corps thought of him as a disgrace, leading him to his fateful demise. Again, a deep breath was drew by the Hitaki. I was drove into a dark time. I was constantly focused on the rules, never sacrificing anything for teamwork, because it showed a weakness in my father's life. It wasn't long after that, did Obito and Rin get on the same team as me, with you as our sensei. With our problems aside, we all had our bonds, but my own rule-following attitude stuck with me until I had to pay the ultimate price. Minato looked almost stoic, but Kakashi knew he was listening. I had to watch Obito die, right in front of me. And all because he pushed me out of the way, he saved me, and I never was able to repay him. A silent tear rolled down Kakashi's eye. He gave me his Sharingan as a parting gift, I was to be his eyes. So Rin removed his left eye and placed it in my own. I had gotten my own eye ripped apart from an earlier battle that day, so it was a necessity and I was honored to take it. Obito's death had a great effect on me, leading me into different paths and harder turns than I was originally willing to face. I killed Rin. I killed her, not because of hate and not because she was an enemy. She had been turned into a Jinchuriku and lost control, almost obliterating the entire Leaf Village. I had no choice, another tear fell. But Obito never died. Minato shifted in his chair, sitting up straighter. Obito was taken by Madara, as I'm sure you know of him, and he used Obito to get revenge on the Leaf. Obito somehow watched me kill Rin. He watched me and never forgave me, until after the war. Obito became the new Madara, until Madara himself decided to come out of hiding and make his move. The Leaf Village united with the other nations and together we fought the war. The Great Ninja War. But set that aside, there are more important things I need to say. Kakashi leaned towards his sensei, his eyes completely serious. Your son is in danger, as is Kushina and the rest of the Leaf. Obito came and took the Kyuubi from Kushina. After the birth, the seal was weakened, so it was easy to take her over. When the 9 tails was taken from her, Obito used it to destroy the Leaf. It would have worked, had you not saved the village. But not without a price. You sacrificed both your life and Kushina's life to save your sons. You sealed the fox into him and then passed as heroes of the leaf. Kakashi stood up, looking out the window. The attack happens tonight. There was silence for a while. My son. So it is a boy. Minato gave a smile, but it vanished as he calculated what was actually happening. Why didn't you tell me earlier? The harshness in his voice was something Kakashi didn't hear very often. It wouldn't have done any good, Kakashi mumbled. If I said anything earlier, you'd only worry about it now. Besides, I've already come up with the plan if Madara actually makes his move. You mean there's a chance he may not? Minato asked, hopeful, but without jumping to conclusions. Kakashi nodded. It was Obito who attacked the village, not Madara. But I'm sure Madara found another life to use, who knows what could happen. Minato nodded. What is your plan then? If we know he's coming, we have an advantage. And without the Rinnegan he shouldn't be as powerful. Kakashi looked and met his sensei's eyes. The Rinnegan, that war must have been brutal. Yeah, but nothing a hero couldn't fix, never mind that though. That isn't my story to tell. Listen, Minato-sensei, you must have Kushina protected at all costs. I'll be helping you guard her tonight. Tonight? She has the baby tonight. Minato's hands suddenly shake. Kakashi sighed. Well, that's why her seal was weakened, sensei. But let's keep our heads straight. Right. I can keep anyone from coming inside, and Obito can help me. I'm not telling either of them of this. It'll only make them worried, or regretful. I don't want to burden them with my old life, Kakashi said. Minato nodded, of course. Once he's born, you can use your technique to teleport them to your house where we'll guard them further. We'll have the entire Anbu at the house. Without your child, sensei, this world will go into a lot of chaos. Minato grows silent for a minute. He comes with you, he said. My son travels back with you. Minato looks into his student's eyes. Kakashi turns away. I'm afraid I can't say. But I'm sure you'll know who came with me in time. Respectfully, Minato nodded and stood up. Let's get this all planned out then, shall we? It had been hours. Hours and hours, but nothing's happened. Kushina's in the hospital under surveillance and everything seems to be going smoothly. Besides the normal chaos of birthing a child, everything seems okay. What are we doing this for, Kakashi? Obito asked, shoving his hands into his pockets. I cancelled my date, he pouted. Kakashi rolled his eyes. We had reason to believe someone was going to extract the Kyuubi from Kushina. We've gone over this, Obito. I know. Obito looked over at his teammate. I trust you, Kakashi. And with that, Kakashi gave a warm smile to his teammate and suddenly, a loud cry was heard. Kakashi froze and became stiff, ready for anything to happen. But nothing did. Inside the hospital room, Minato leaned by his love and looked at his son. Blonde hair, whisker marks, bright blue eyes. He was amazing, beautiful. Welcome to the world, Naruto, Kushina whispered, kissing her son's forehead. You're safe here. In a cave, outside the leaf, sat a shaded figure. I know what you've done, Kakashi. I may not make my move now, but the time will come and I will get revenge. There's something about silence that's threatening. As if the unknown is eating your very soul. It's not just the nothingness, there can never be nothingness, but the norm that people begin to adapt when there's silence. The hope they form, the dreams they put to action. It's a great time, one for celebration and joyousness. But if one knows better, they know it doesn't last. And thus, the silence creeps further into their head. The sun was high in the sky, clear skies, a bit of breeze. Honestly, the weather was absolutely awesome. Perfect, beautiful. Obito enjoyed these days. He enjoyed thinking of what has happened during his life. What he's accomplished, what he dreams of for further days ahead. Thinking is man's true friend. Yet, it can still destroy them. Obito knew this, so he thought of happy times, not living in the past. His life as a shinobi wasn't all that tough. And at times, Kakashi seemed like his guardian angel. When they were genin, he was able to say something as if he knew it would happen. Minato used to question him about it, but Kakashi simply said it was instinct. Whatever that meant, Obito just liked to go with the flow of things. Of course, he had his own ways of getting there, but he got there all the same. Obito. Obito turned around to see Rin running over to him, a smile playing on her lips. What's up, Rin? He grinned, slightly tilting his head. Rin handing him a piece of paper. Kushina gave me that earlier this morning. It's an invitation to Naruto's first birthday party. She smiled again, walking alongside the Uchiha. Well then, I hope you don't mind being my date to this party, Obito said with fake gusto. He held his arm out, letting her take it in her hands. I don't know, she said, playfully tapping her chin. I had my eyes on another guy. Obito just furrowed his brows. Then he'll have to go through me, now won't he? He said, pulling her closer to him. Rin giggled, leaning her head on his upper arm. I suppose I can be your date. Suppose? Obito repeated, kissing the top of her head. Clearly I've got some competition out there, he said. They continued to playfully walk throughout the town, enjoying the peacefulness of the sky. Just one more step, Naruto. Kushina held Naruto's fisted hands as he wobbly moved his foot on the carpet. His leg shot forward and his toe would point, searching for the ground below him. When it finally made its mark, he let go of his mother's hands and plopped to the floor with a huff. Giggling, Kushina sat down beside her son. You think you're tired? Think of having to run around the house after you've made a mess, Kushina teased, poking his nose in which he promptly scrunched and moved his head away. Nah-oh, he mumbled. Kushina was about to continue her mini-conversation with her son when there was a knock at the door. She stood up and walked to the door, reaching for the knob and opening it. She was glad the door no longer squeaked. Minato had fixed that just last week. Makoto? Kushina moved from the doorway to let her friend come inside. What are you doing here? Makoto gave a teasing frown. I can't say hello to my friend's son? It's his birthday after all, and his first one for that matter. Oh of course, Kushina half-heartedly laughed and let her friend enter her home. And you brought Sasuke. Kushina smiled and patted the toddler's head. He had an extra 3 months on Naruto, but since Naruto was so crazy and wild, they seemed to be on the same maturity level and size. Though Sasuke could make more understandable words. So what's new? Kushina tried to start conversation, sitting down on the couch. Makoto shrugged. Fagaku's been working on getting Itachi ready to graduate the academy, but other than that, everything's normal. Graduating? Itachi's only 6 years old. He's learning fast, and he's already top of his class. I hope he stays so kind-hearted though. I'd hate to see his softness turn cold. Makoto set Sasuke down on the ground. At first he just sat there, observing his mother's small talk with the redhead he's seen before, but soon, he began to slowly make his way towards Naruto. When he was only arm length away, he stopped, staring him. Naruto put on a big grin, only some of his small teeth showing. Reaching out his hands, he, not so gently, gave Sasuke a high five, in the face. As soon as Sasuke fell over, his lips started to wobble, preparing for a temper tantrum. But right as angry tears were about to fall, there was a chubby hand in front of his face. He grabbed it and sat up, only to find Naruto sitting there with focused eyes looking over him. In another second, he had the same grin again, Sasuke too, sharing the joy laughter. They'll be good friends, Makoto smiled, watching the interaction between them. Kushina nodded. Let's make sure it stays that way. They looked to when they heard the click of the door. Minato walked in, a smile on his face. I was able to finish paperwork early, plus they had mercy on my due to my son's birthday, he said, scooping up Naruto and leaving Sasuke to watch half-heartedly at the scene. Well, I guess I should be going now, Makoto said, standing up and picking up Sasuke. I shan't keep dinner waiting. She waved a goodbye and left the couple alone in peace. I'll see you around, Kushina hollered at the closing door. Minato sat down on the couch, Naruto happily bouncing in his arms. I think Kakashi, Obito and Rin are coming over tonight, he began, getting in a comfortable position. Is anyone else coming? He asked, not sure what was planned for the night. I only invited them, too many people in the house never goes well, she mused out loud. They'll be here in about an hour or so. Danzo sat in the Anbu headquarters, pondering to himself. Across from him sat a masked figure, a hood covering his head. He wore a dark cloak, one with red clouds on it. The very presence of him seemed intimidating. Danzo, he said in a low voice. The Namikaze child, he mustn't live for long. You know what happened to them, don't you? He continued. Danzo shook his head. Only that Hitaki seems to be able to read every move we make. Precisely, he's a smart shinobi. You see, Kakashi Hitaki isn't quite from this time. He shares the memories of his past self, the cloaked figure explained. He came from a place where trial and error occurred much too often for the Leaf, and he seems to be piecing back the shattered glass of his old life. And how did you come to this knowledge? Danzo pushed his luck, asking the figure. He chuckled darkly, pulling his hood down to reveal a pitch-black mask, Rinnegan eyes bleeding through. Because I've done it. Kakashi appeared outside the Namikaze's household. He had brought a gift for Naruto, something he knew he'd eventually like. A plush frog. He knocked on the door and waited for it to be opened. Obito? Kakashi's eyebrows raised as he scanned his friend over. He found his own eyes meeting his and he stared at the black coal eyes of the Uchiha clan. The Sharingan, something he once possessed. In another life, that is. He didn't miss it though, he enjoyed having two eyes open at once. Oh, Kakashi, we thought you'd never come. Obito teased, opening the door for him to come inside. Minato waved from the couch, "Hello, Kakashi." Kakashi nodded to the people in the room, only being Rin, Obito, Kushina, and Minato. Plus Naruto rolling on the carpet. "Hey, here's a gift for the little guy," Kakashi said casually, setting the bag on the counter. "Minato-sensei, can I speak to you for a moment? I'd hate to keep you from this, but it'll only take a second," Kakashi said, standing rather stiff. Minato, without much reluctance, got up and led Kakashi down the hall where they could talk, leaving Rin, Obito, and Kushina alone in the room to continue the conversation. "What is it, Kakashi?" Minato asked, knowing it must be important if he would ask to talk to him. Kakashi fumbled his hands in his pockets until he finally let the words spill out. "Your son, he traveled with me. So I thought correctly that day?" Minato mused out loud. "Why didn't you say anything to me? It's not like I couldn't handle it." Kakashi shook his head. "It's not that, sensei. It's just Naruto's old story that bothered me. You see, when he awakens at around 5 to 10 years old, he'll remember his past. His old memories will combine with the new ones and he'll remember the pain of his past life," Kakashi explained. "Naruto wasn't just some light-hearted kid, sensei. What are you getting at?" Minato asked, not quite understanding Kakashi's riddle. "I'm saying that Naruto's childhood was hell. Though he was able to grow up and deal with it in his own manner, it won't change the fact that this life now is much different from the old one. Behavioral change will be very noticeable, so I'm just warning you." Kushina could notice, the village could notice. "It could be dangerous, we can't have people knowing about us." Minato nodded. "Is it just you and Naruto who traveled back?" Kakashi thought about it a while. He wasn't sure if he should tell Minato about Sakura or not. Then again, he shan't lie to his sensei. "No, there were 3 of us. Myself, your son, and Sakura Haruno." "Haruno? The smaller blood clan? I don't even know is their families are ninja," Minato pointed out. "Who's this Sakura?" Kakashi gave a low chuckle. "She's something, that's for sure. She was one of my students when I was the squad leader of your son's team. I had Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Uzumaki," Kakashi began. "A force to be reckoned with." "That doesn't answer my question, Kakashi. If Sakura came back with you, that means she's in this village now as well. We'll have to worry about her awakening, won't we?" Minato asked, getting to business as usual. "She's smart. Unlike your son who tends to think on his feet rather than his take time, she'll figure it out easily." Sakura was the proud pupil of Tsunade-sama herself. In fact, just after her passing, Sakura surpassed her master. "She's the greatest medical nin I've ever known," he said proudly. "Amazing, surpassing Tsunade? That's almost unheard of," Minato exclaimed, eyes wide. "Well, I'm sure she'll be of use in the Leaf Village," he said, excited to meet her. His head snapped back to Kakashi as he remembered something. "Sasuke Uchiha, you taught him?" he asked. Kakashi nodded. "I did. He was one of my proudest pupils. However, his path wasn't an easy one. I'm just happy he died for the right cause." "The Uchiha massacre," Minato mumbled, almost quiet enough that Kakashi couldn't hear. "How do you know?" the Hitaki asked, straightening up. "Danzo has approached me about the idea. He claims that the Uchiha are trying to rebel against the Leaf. I know this is true, but killing an entire clan is cruel." Minato seemed to be talking to himself when he said this, but Kakashi felt the need to respond. "Ah, yes indeed. Sasuke was on a terrible path and it led to nothing but vengeance. A similar story to myself and Obito." Kakashi mused. However, Minato didn't understand the metaphor because he himself was dead in that life. "Just make sure nothing leaks out, okay?" Kakashi asked, respectfully bowing when Minato nodded. "Thanks, Minato-sensei." Please, you deserve a thank you yourself, considering how much you have helped the village, Minato replied humbly. Now let's get back out there before they think something's up, he laughs, walking down the hall. Of course, Kakashi followed Minato down the hall and into the living room where everyone sat. It was good to know that this life was much easier. Though Kakashi knew it wasn't going to last, if there's one thing he learned in life. Expect the unexpected. Madara, a cloaked figure, pitch black mask, blood-red clouds, entered the room. It's about Danzo. Madara turned around, his older face seemed to sag and weigh down his body. What is it, Yudai? I'm afraid he plans on doing things his own way, Yudai said, adjusting his place mask. He may be more trouble than he's worth. Then we'll just have to fix that, won't we? Madara sneered. Kill him, or make sure he listens. Yudai nodded. Of course, I'll make sure he follows orders, whether that means killing him or keeping him alive, we'll find out. Yudai turned to leave, but just as he was about to leave the dim room, Madara spoke up again. Yudai, Madara called, stopping him in his tracks. Keep an eye out for the kid, he said, dismissing him. Naruto Namikaze, it's time I finally meet you. Naruto walked the streets of Konoha, his hand held firmly in his father's, the other in his mother's. He always enjoyed the walks he shared with his parents, something he did quite often. He had just finished celebrating his 5th birthday party with his friends the other day, and he was enjoying being a big boy now. 5 years old was an accomplishment, after all. He strutted his strut and walked the walk all the way to the academy. Today was his first day. He was going to meet friends, friends that would grow up and fight alongside him, live with him, battle with him, die with him. Of course, in the mind of a 5-year-old, it was more of just playing ninja. It would be a long time until he fully understood what that truly meant. Naruto, Kushina spoke, causing Naruto to look up at him. Are you excited for your first day? She asked. She had asked that many times, almost too many to count, and the way Minato seemed to casually roll his eyes at the question let her know just how much she actually asked. A lot, but she couldn't help it. The smile that he'd put on his face and his excited and sparkling eyes were something she could look at for hours. Naruto nodded enthusiastically, still open to sharing how excited he was. Yeah, I'm gonna become the bestest ninja of all time, he vowed, shoving his fist in the air. I'm gonna get smarter and stronger than both of you. His eyes shone so much promise and determination that Kushina was tempted to pick him up and tell him to stop growing up. But her pride in her son stopped her. He was becoming so strong. Just as his father. You going to become stronger than us, Sport? Minato asked, looking down his arm and to his son's face. Yep, you don't think I'd let you two take all the glory, did you? He asked, a spark of mischief in his voice. Kushina snorted, how rude of us to think such a thought. Naruto nodded, obviously enjoying the attention, not that he never had any. That's okay, I forgive you, he said sincerely. Kushina and Minato shared a look. Their son seemed to repeat conversations between themselves. One time, Kushina had just told Minato that it was unprofessional to leave his shoes in the hallway, and so when Naruto overheard this, he constantly said that it was unprofessional to leave anything anywhere. She had to give the kid some credit. It led to some entertaining memories, but sometimes it just made her wonder. Well, we're almost to the school, Minato said, turning away from his wife and to the academy ahead. We'll pick you up after school, okay? He said, giving him the rundown before they reached the doors. Okay, and no picking fights. Yes ma'am, respect your teacher. MK, be kind to the other kids. Yeah, pay attention. Okay, don't run around during class, there will be plenty of recess time for duh. Okay, now if you'll let me, he pulled from his parents, giving them a huge grin, I'm off to becoming a ninja. Kushina sighed, and much too fast. He ran on ahead, his quite large backpack, in comparison to him, bounced on his back, making a subtle clack. As the other younger kids raced forward in front of his parents, Naruto could be seen vanishing through the crowd and into the school. Minato held his wife's hand and turned around. Come on, let's get back home, he said, leaning in to give her a brief kiss, you shouldn't overdo yourself. Minato, Kushina began in a scolding voice. I'm pregnant, not helpless. He gestured to her bulging stomach and sighed, though at how big I am now, I guess I might as well be. Laughing, Minato led his wife back to their house, quiet conversation peacefully floating between the two. Naruto bounced into his first class. Sasuke had met him by the door where he began to tell him everything that Itachi had told him about the days as an academy student. How they practiced throwing real kunai, or learning to fight with taijutsu. So many exciting things that they would be able to learn. Everyone sit down, the teacher said. I am Iruka and I'll be teaching you until you graduate to Genin, he said, pacing from one side of the class to the next. You will learn about fighting, strategy, academics, and most of all, the will of fire. Naruto seemed to perk up at those words. His father had spoken them so many times and explained the meaning. The will of fire is something that runs in all of the Leaf's shinobi. It's honor, determination, strength, mercy and unpredictability. Now, for the first day of school, we'll go over some brief history and then we'll have lunch. After that, you'll all come back here and we'll go over the basics of throwing a kunai, but we won't get to throw them today. A few s and other disappointing sounds came from the class, but Iruka seemed unaffected. Now, I'm going to pass out some pens. Do not write on your desk with them. When you get a pen, get a piece of paper that is on your table and go through the basic symbols of our language, Iruka instructed. Sasuke picked a piece of paper, kindly handing one to Naruto as well. He grabbed a pen from the basket that was going around the classroom and both he and Naruto began writing. 5 years old and already writing the alphabet. What has life come to? Naruto slumped as he sloppily wrote all of the symbols, drawing on the margin lines when he was finished. Excuse me, a small voice came from behind him. He turned around to meet large green eyes. My pen broke. Could I use yours? She whispered, showing her broken pen. Without hesitation, Naruto nodded and handed her his pen. No problem. What's your name? He whispered back, taking a quick glance at the teacher before proceeding to look at her. Sakura, she smiled. You're Naruto, right? His eyes widened. How do you know? You're the Hokage's son. You look a lot like your dad, you know, she said, testing the pen on her own side margins. Satisfied that it worked, she continued her symbols. Say, Naruto leaned towards her, looking at her paper. Your handwriting's a lot neater than mine, Sakura-chan, he said in a loud hush. Other had began to talk with others, so he didn't feel the need to be sly. She blushed, but it disappeared so fast, Naruto wondered if he saw wrong. I guess I just write a lot. Naruto nodded, grinning to himself as he turned back around, grabbing Sasuke's attention. Sasuke, he said, successful in getting his friend's eye contact. This is Sakura-chan, he said, motioning to the pink-haired girl who sat behind him. Sakura-chan, this is Sasuke, he nodded. Sakura smiled, her blush seemingly appearing again when meeting Sasuke's eyes, but again, it went away in a blink of an eye. It's good to meet you, Naruto. Sasuke. Everyone quiet down. Iruka hushed the class. Now everyone gather here on this mat, he said, gesturing to the multicolored mat that laid on the floor. In a few moments, everyone had sat by their friends and looked intently at Iruka. Let's go over simple spelling. Anyone know how to spell red? He asked, a few hands raised. R-E-D, one said when called. Good, Iruka smiled. Now how about yellow? This is a harder one. The day went on as such, learning simple things and getting used to the school schedule. Naruto, only being 5, found that some things were difficult. Like finding a seat without stealing someone else's. Or getting food and not getting a few snacks snatched from you. The academics came quite easy to him. His mom was strict in learning and getting things learned because she knew how much it would help him. Of course, Naruto thought it was just another way for her to torture him. He could pull off an A, but he didn't enjoy it. If he had the choice, he'd probably drop out. And it was only his first day. But this was the path to take to become a ninja. And a ninja he would become. The bell rang and Naruto slumped out of his chai and made his way to the door. Finally, school was out for the day. He could actually do something. Naruto, a voice called, he immediately recognized it. Hey, Sakura-chan, he turned around and grinned. He watched her intently as her eyes widened and an unrecognizable fog came into her eyes. It was as if she was somewhere else, but as quickly as it happened, she blinked and shook her head. Never mind. I'll see you tomorrow, Naruto, she called, giving him a smile and turning to run out the school doors. Scratching the back of his head, Naruto seemingly shrugged it off for another time. Girls were weird. His mother was proof enough for that. How was your first day of school? Kushina asked, leaning down and getting eye level with her son. They were just outside the schoolyard and other parents and kids were brushing by, talking about their first day of school. Good, I guess, Naruto shrugged. It was a little boring. Oh, why is that? Kushina's eyebrows raised. Minato, who was standing behind her, decided to join the conversation. You didn't do anything? He asked, wondering if the academy was getting soft. Naruto rolled his eyes and put his hands lazily behind his head. Worse, he muttered. We had to do work. His face was almost picture perfect to his mother's at this moment. Both had puckered lips and sour faces. As soon as Kushina shook her face off, she quickly scolded her son. Well, that's what school is, Naruto. You need to learn things to become a ninja, she said wisely. Naruto just nodded. There was one good thing, well, there were a couple, but I really enjoyed this moment, he said, waiting for his parents to prompt him to continue. With interested nods, they urged him to talk. I met this girl named Sakura-chan. She's nice and super smart. She has like the best handwriting I've ever seen, he said, moving his arms about to exaggerate his point. Minato almost froze. Sakura, you said? He asked, remembering the name Kakashi spoke all those years ago. Naruto nodded. Uh-huh. Kushina deadpanned. My baby boy is only 5. He can't think about girls yet. She dramatized. Naruto recoiled from his mother. Ew. No, never in a million years. I don't like girls, he said, running off into the roads of Konoha with a laughing Kushina and Minato at his feet. Life was good, truly it was. Naruto, your days at the academy will begin to get a little bit more exciting, don't worry. I'll be sure to give you quite the thrill. A shadowed figure stepped back into the doors of the academy, an evil aura following him. It was strange for her, this new place combined with the memories of her past life. She knew everything about here, and there wasn't anything wrong about it. Ino and her hadn't become best friends yet, so nothing to fear except getting to know her. Her friends she did have seemed pretty legit, and Naruto seemed to have touched base with her the other day at school. He didn't have his memories though, she was a completely new person to him. And the best part about this new life, she didn't necessarily fan over Sasuke yet, 'cause she's only 5 or 6 years old. Yeah, how old was she exactly? Normally her medical training could tell her her age, but it was on an estimate. Was her birthday even the same day? She smiled at the brief memory of Naruto. She was glad that her team came with her. She would miss some memories with Ino and her parents, maybe with others as well, but the memories with Naruto were irreplaceable. With much of her heart, she would say that many of Naruto and her memories were her life. Brushing the thought aside, she waved goodbye to her parents and shot out of the classroom doors. What did kids learn in kindergarten? Colors? Simple ninja things? Well, at least she won't have to listen in class. This is all elementary stuff, though Naruto would probably need it. She giggled at her joke, though it probably was true, and entered the classroom where a few students were sitting, others standing, some talking. For the first time in forever, things were actually normal. Sakura-chan, even that. Sakura turned around, even though she knew who it was. Just because she knew, didn't mean that she should just be her old self again. She needed to make a slow change, subtle, after all, she was 5. That meant she needed to act like a 5-year-old. What a joy. Hey, Naruto. She smiled and gave a wave. Good enough. Hi, where are you sitting, Sakura-chan? He asked eagerly. Shrugging, she pointed to the seats, probably over there somewhere, she teased. She walked over and found a spot, ignoring Naruto's whines and protest of being unspecific. It was good to see Naruto happy. It had been a while since he'd had a real smile. Or, it had been in her old memories. Sasuke's death seemed to hit both of them hard, but now Sasuke's alive, Naruto has his parents, and hopefully the Uchiha massacre won't happen. But if it does, it only means that they'll have to work harder at helping Sasuke. She's no longer a weakling. She's Haruno Sakura, Iruka called. Present, she squeaked, still not used to her tiny voice. Sakura began to think, just what has changed? If Lord Fourth was still alive and kicking, then that means that the third won't be killed on the invasion from the sand. In fact, the invasion from the sand won't even happen, or most likely. And that means that Gaara won't be Case Cage. Damn, she cursed. Gaara not being Case Cage, that means we won't have an alliance with the sand. Everything between him and Naruto will be ruined. Suddenly, a small hope inside her chest swelled and brought a smile to her face. Not if Naruto can help it. Pissed, Sakura heard Naruto whisper. Though it wasn't directed towards her, she still listened. Sasuke, how about we spar after school? Sasuke gave a huff. You probably can't even hold a kunai, he teased with a small smile, but sure, why not? Sasuke's tone wasn't flat or emotionless. You didn't have to read his eyebrows to see what he was actually thinking. His voice, his body movements seemed to tell her. It was good to have a carefree Sasuke. She didn't get to know the real Sasuke ever. Sure, he was still serious, but he was an Uchiha. His pride was the size of his overly spiked duck butt hair. Giggling at her own joke, she heard both Naruto and Sasuke stop their conversation and look at her. When she stopped, she looked back at them. Sasuke had a bewildered look and Naruto was blushing. Now why on earth would Naruto blush? Self-consciousness began raking at her brain and she spun back around and looked at herself, wondering if something was out of check. What's that look for, Baka? She asked, spinning around, despite her teacher's current lecture about something she probably already knew. Naruto whipped his head to the side, mumbling something incoherent. Sasuke glanced sideways at him with a knowing smirk playing on his lips. He leaned down to Sakura, still keeping his eyes on Naruto. Seems Dobi here actually likes a girl, he whispered, just loud enough for Naruto to hear. Sasuke Uteme, I'll punch you good for that one. Naruto launched at Sasuke with his hands outstretched and in just a few moments both boys were on the floor in some kind of fight. Definitely was not Taijutsu. Sakura watched with an amused face, not taking her eyes off the scene. Are you enjoying this? Sakura heard a voice peep from beside her. Actually, Sakura turned to find Ino looking at her with a strange look. I am. It was silent between the two before Ino broke into a smile. My name's Ino, she said, not bothering to offer her hand. I'm Sakura, good to meet you, Ino. Sakura smiled and then glanced back to Naruto and Sasuke. So what are they fighting over? Ino questioned, assuming that she knew the reason. Sakura laughed. Naruto got embarrassed about something, she grinned. Sasuke decided to make fun of it, she finished. Ino nodded, those two, always fighting about something. Sakura sighed, yeah, I swear I'll kill you. They heard Naruto mumble from under Sasuke's hand that covered his mouth. Suddenly, the class grew quiet as Iruka's figure hovered the boys. Ahem, he began, both Sasuke and Naruto halting in their actions. I do believe you're disrupting the class, he said, semi-politely. It was the Hokage's son after all. He didn't want his son coming home and telling his dad about how horrid his teacher was. Naruto stood up reluctantly, like anyone listens, he mumbled, receiving a sharp elbow from Sasuke. With a vein throbbing in his forehead, Iruka went back with what dignity he had left to teach the class. Class was over, and with a sigh, Sakura exited the classroom. She was just about out of the schoolyard when the same voice as earlier called her name. Sakura-chan. She stopped and turned around. You wanna watch me beat Sasuke's butt? He asked from afar, but his foxy grin could be seen from a mile away. As well as the rock that was being flung at his face from the proud Uchiha. Sakura laughed and waved her hand dismissively. I actually have to go, Naruto. I'm sure you'll whoop Sasuke good though, she said sarcastically, though Naruto didn't seem to catch it. Instead he fist-pumped and began to brag about something to Sasuke. She almost forgot that his mind was still 5. She began to go to the marmoreal stone where her sensei used to always sit. She wondered briefly if he would be there, since Obito and Rin weren't actually dead. She shrugged and decided to run anyway, finding her body getting tired and more exhausted quicker. When she could see the marmoreal stone in sight, she slowed down and began walking the rest of the way. Again, a voice stopped her. And what are you doing out here by yourself? Shouldn't you be in school? The calm voice asked. Sakura turned around and saw her sensei, young and still nose deep in the trash he called literature. Still reading I see, Sakura said, her eyebrows raised, unamused. Kakashi glanced up at her, his eyes squinting. Yes, it seems I read a lot, he said casually. Peeved, Sakura rolled her eyes. Not, seems. It's a fact, Kakashi. Quite the tongue you've got for a 5-year-old, he chastised, a playful smile on his face. It's good to see you so soon. Sakura. She nodded with a smile of her own. Yeah. I'm surprised I awakened as fast as I did. It doesn't make sense. Why did I remember so quickly? Kakashi shrugged. My best guess would be that something or someone triggered it. Sakura thought about that for a moment. Triggered it? She asked herself quietly. No understanding what would. Life was pretty normal around here, though she found it funny that it triggered her first day of school. What would trigger it? Well, as much as I'd like to stay and chat, Sakura. I'm pretty sure it'd be strange if I randomly was talking to you while I wait for my teammates to get here, Kakashi said casually. Sakura shot up and waved. Sorry sensei. Stop calling me that. Kakashi watched her walk off when he felt eyes on him. Hello Obito, he said, turning around to meet Obito's amused face. So you're a pedophile now, Kakashi? He teased. Kakashi practically fell over. No, he said coolly. Sure, you just so happened to meet a young 5-year-old by the memorial stone when she's supposed to be in school. Actually it just got out, Kakashi corrected. Wouldn't you know, Obito said suggestively. Laughter could be heard from afar as Rin approached the clearing. Obito, she half scolded, stop teasing Kakashi. Why should I? He teases me, he protested as if a child despite his age. Kakashi gave him a look. I thought you enjoyed the teasing. Of course I don't. That's not what you said last night. I swear Kakashi, I'll have your head. Rin could only watch as the childish banter went on. These were somehow her teammates and the 4th Hokage's students. She sighed and took out the mission scroll, looking over it while they continued, whatever it was they did. Kushina was in the living room talking with Naruto about his day. He always seemed to love talking about his day. It was the first thing he'd do when he'd get home. And then guess what, he said, pausing in between his storytelling. What? No. Yes, Naruto pressured, a grin across his face. Kushina took a deep breath thinking about what her son was talking about moments ago. He was fighting Sasuke, apparently winning too, and claimed victory within the entire village. You became the village hero? She asked, hoping she was following her son's imagination. He rapidly shook his head. No. That's later mom, you ruined it. After I beat Sasuke I get Sakura-chan to play with me, he said, pumping his fist into his chest. He flashed a foxy grin, then I become the hero of the village. Kushina sighed, my bad, she said, struggling to get up. How about a snack? You want a snack? She asked, glancing behind her as she made her way to the kitchen. She could hear Naruto make a noise in the other room. You're always hungry, he teased, hopping onto the stool at their counter. Kushina gave him a look that instantly shut him up. Well I am eating for two you know, she said, resting one arm on her swollen stomach. She continued to rummage through the cupboards and get some things out for a snack. Cheese and crackers sounded nice. The door was heard as it clicked and opened, revealing a sighing Minato. Setting his things on the table by the door, he made his way to the kitchen, watching his family sit at the counter. Here, let me help you, Kushina. His smile that he wore was genuine, so she didn't have any trouble letting him help. A loud crack was heard in the kitchen as Kushina dropped a plate, grabbing the counter quickly, as if about to fall. She closed her eyes tightly, trying to focus on getting the pain to go away. Her knuckles turned white and her jaw clenched. Minato rushed over, his hands on her shoulders, rubbing gently. Kushina, are you alright? He asked, trying to look at her face. She shook her head. No, she gasped, looking up at him once the intense wave was gone. The baby's coming. Why is it that the one time a mind freezes is in a time of conflict? Why not it freeze when people try to sleep, to relax? But no, it tends to run even faster when you sit down and let yourself think. Think of possibilities or happenings, of memories. But then as soon as something flashes and comes right at you, you freeze, you can't do a thing, your body just doesn't want to move. And that's why Minato tried his best to not let himself be surprised. But there are always exceptions. Minato. Dad. Minato shook his head. Right, he nodded, grabbing his wife's wrist. We need to go to the hospital. Use your damn jutsu, Minato baka. Kushina cursed, yanking her arm back only to wince at another contraction. Minato again looked at her strangely. It wasn't until he felt a tug on his pants did he look down to see Naruto handing him a 3-pronged kunai. Right, that jutsu. High, he stuttered, making a seal and concentrating on the kunai he had put in the office. Then, in a flash, they disappeared. The kunai Naruto held fell limply to the ground with a ringing clink and the house fell silent. But the hospital was erupting in chaos. Minato rushed to nurse after nurse, Naruto rushing behind him. Normally, Minato was calm, collected, strong. But many times he was quite a Pansy, in matters such as this. Of course, it wasn't every day that your wife had a child, and Naruto's birth wasn't an easy one. There were many complications with seals and the Kyuubi. The Kyuubi. Minato's eyes widened. The Kyuubi wouldn't try and escape, would it? There's no way, not again. It was the masked man who wanted to screw it all up. Kyuubi wouldn't escape. It couldn't. Minato rushed to another nurse, asking for anything about Kushina. She simply shook her head and rushed to another room. Minato stopped short of asking again and turned around. Relax, alright? His eyes widened and a faint smile broke out on his face. Jiraiya-sensei, what are you doing in the village? Jiraiya chuckled and folded his arms. Well, I came by to see how the fourth Hokage and his family was doing. Little did I know the family was growing. He lifted a brow. Kushina's in the delivery room? Yeah, Minato breathed. He felt a tug at his shirt, and looked down to see Naruto. Who's the old man? Naruto asked bluntly, looking strangely at Jiraiya. Something behind his eyes clicked, but he blinked and it was gone. Jiraiya's face fell, looking overly stoic at Naruto. He's got Kushina's manners, he said blatantly. Minato laughed nervously. We're working on that, he said. He seems to think he can speak whatever pops into his head. Naruto, however, seemed oblivious to their conversation as he continued to stare down Jiraiya. Something was strange about this man. He had sworn he'd seen him before. Pervy sage? He cocked his head as the thought came into his mind. Jiraiya, he'd heard that before, but no matter. His big brother's senses were tingling as he heard the door to his mom's room open and then close, a nurse coming out and rushing to his dad. Hokage-sama, she cluttered the tools in her hands into her large lab coat pockets. Your wife is ready to see you, she said. Naruto just about ran into the room but was held back just as he began running. Sorry, Naruto. You'll have to stay back with Jiraiya-sensei here, Minato said, shoving a squirming and reluctant Naruto into Jiraiya's arms. You'll be able to come in soon, I promise. Dad, wait, I want to see, but it was too late. Minato had already closed the door and the nurses were rushing back to what they were doing. Naruto slumped into the old sage's arms. Peeved, he huffed. Jiraiya laughed and set Naruto down beside him. Don't worry, you'll be in there soon. Naruto just moved his head to the side in a dismissive manner. However, his natural curiosity tended to cause and diminish his rebelliousness. He looked to Jiraiya with a cocked brow. So you're Jiraiya? Jiraiya nodded, his chest puffing. The one and only. He stuck his thumb out as if proving his point more, lady killer. Ew. Naruto recoiled from him as if he were toxic. You kill women. Stay away from my mom. He yelled, standing up straight and staring into his eyes, or I'll kill you myself. For a moment, there was silence, something that was hard to come by in the rushed hospital. But nothing lasted forever. You brat. I don't kill women. I sweep them off their feet. You don't sweep women. You sweep dirt, but I guess it's the same to you. I swear. I mean, I make them all come to me. Naruto froze and looked at him with the most odd expression. So you're a chick magnet? Sure. Whatever floats your boat, kid. Jiraiya rubbed his temples to try and relieve his headache. Perv, Naruto grinned. Pervy sage. That's what you are. He laughed, holding his stomach to contain himself. Jiraiya, under normal circumstances, would have hit the brat. However, being he was in a hospital and he was the Hokage's son, screw it. They were in a hospital, he'd get healed. Ow. Naruto held his head in pain. What the heck, pervy sage? What did I do? Jiraiya crossed his arms and huffed. Learn some manners, kid. Jiraiya-sama. Kakashi greeted as he, Obito and Rin entered the hospital waiting room. I see you ran into Naruto, he said, looking at the scene before him. Naruto was crouched and holding his head as Jiraiya looked at him with his arms crossed, a satisfied smirk on his face. Hey, Kakashi. Obito, Rin, how have you guys been? Jiraiya said, being conversational. Naruto flicked his head up when he heard the names. Obito, he yelled, running over and hiding behind the carefree Uchiha's back. You know this perv? He asked, looking up at him, but taking a few glances back at the sage. Kakashi full out grinned and Rin laughed at what Naruto said. Obito just seemed to stare in awe at the blonde behind him. You, Naruto, are a genius. Naruto cocked his head. Why's that, Obito? I've been trying to find a nickname for Jiraiya-sama for ages. Pervy sage. It fits perfectly, he grinned, glancing at Rin. She shook her head in amusement and slapped Obito's arm. Jiraiya slumped. No respect. None at all, he mumbled. Naruto stepped back from Obito, standing between the Uchiha and the Hitaki. He looked up at them, at how close they all seemed to be, how much he longed for it. It didn't make sense why he would though, he's had a perfect life. Except when the villagers hated him, where did that come from? Naruto wondered, still looking at the once team too. He let his arms fall limply to his side, memories knocking on his brain, but none coming in. He shook his head. Was there something he was missing? What the hell was going on? Jiraiya-sama, a nurse called. All eyes looked to her. She pointed to the delivery room door. Lady Kushina is all finished and they are ready to see Naruto, she said. The silent fact that only Naruto was to go in seemed to be understood. Naruto slowly walked to the door where the nurse let him in, and then closed it behind her. It was strange. There were many things Naruto expected to feel. He expected to feel happy, he expected to feel like a big brother, he expected to feel slightly jealous at having to share attention, he expected to feel older. But none of those expectations occurred. Instead, he felt joyous, he felt responsible, he felt gracious, and he felt as if all of the world suddenly crashed into his mind. But it wasn't sorrow that followed. It was relief. True, clinging relief. Suddenly, what he wanted didn't matter. He saw his family in front of him and wanted nothing else. Family was what got him where he is now, and family is where he'll always be. No matter where or when. Always. Mom, Dad, he whispered, approaching the hospital bed his father sat on and his mother rested on. He climbed onto the bed, careful not to disturb the baby in his mother's arms, and he watched with observant eyes. He didn't ever want to look away. This is your little sister, Naruto. Kushina breathed, kissing Naruto's head, and then the little one's. Her name is Emi, she smiled. Emi Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto watched as it seemed sparks erupt from his sister, fluttering into his stomach and making his face break out into a huge grin. It was uncontrollable, strange, completely new. Now, he had someone to protect. With his life. Emi, he looked at her. Oh, she's got your red hair, Mom, he said. Suddenly, the child's eyes opened and looked around, falling place when she met Naruto's blue eyes. Naruto? Part of him wanted to jump back when he heard the voice. It didn't come from his sister, but from where? Naruto? He tried not to react, continuing to stare into his little sister's eyes. He reached out his hand and touched her head, gently, as if glass. And right as his fingers swept her heated head and thin red hair, he froze. Eyes fogged, ears ringing, body paralyzed. Naruto, come back, remember? He shot up and off the hospital bed, staring at the complicated pattern in the ceiling. His eyes drooped and his hands felt cool on the hospital floor. But as soon as he fell, he got back up, staring at his parents who were staring at him. Naruto? Minato asked, looking strangely, yet expectantly at his son. Kushina looked on tiredly, as if expecting something like that. Are you alright? In a flash, they were all enveloped into a family hug. I love you guys, he whispered, not loosening his grasp. So much. Minato looked at his son, only the age of 5. Had Kakashi been right? Is this the old Naruto too? Be as it may be, he couldn't fight off the warm feeling in his chest, so he too embraced his family. Months later. It was strange, living in this world. Every day he thought about it. Every day he woke up, thinking it was only a dream, and he never wanted to wake up. This world was hopeful, full of family, full of friends, and since he has his memories, regaining his skills won't be too hard. He's suffered enough as it is, so his experience was abundant. The only problem was, things would alter. He and Sakura had talked about it one day. He had said how much would alter, how things would change, what had already changed. Sakura pointed out that Gaara may never be Kazekage unless he went on another rampage. But they didn't want to willingly destroy something. Was Gaara being Kazekage actually worth it? Maybe not, but making Gaara be him's actually self, that was. Kazekage aside, he wanted his friend. And the Uchiha massacre, that was another one. It's great that it won't happen, not with his father as Hokage, and Sasuke will fall on the right path. And without the curse mark, their team would stay together. But with their team staying together, that meant no Sai. And no Sai meant, well, it just meant no Sai. Some things would change in this world, but at least it was for the better. Naruto smiled as he entered his house. He had just gotten home from school, Normally his parents would pick him up, but today his dad had something and someone was coming over, so his mom had to stay at the house. "Hey, Mom, I'm home," he called. He actually had no idea who to expect when he came into the room. Jiraiya was back out on his missions, so it wasn't him. Plus he couldn't picture his mom and Jiraiya in the same room without his dad. "We're in the kitchen," she hollered back. He noticed. So there was someone else home. He walked into the kitchen to see only his mother cleaning dishes and his sitter on the floor, half wrapped in a blanket and half sprawled out, playing with her toys. Like normal, he walked to his sister and sat down across from her, snatching a toy from the ground and placing it back down, acting as if it were walking. "Well, haven't you grown up?" he heard a rasped voice say. He's heard it before, in fact the tone of it made him freeze. That voice. So you must be Naruto. He turned around, his eyes curious and his hands eager to reach out, but he didn't. He didn't know Tsunade yet in this world. "Hi," was all he said, a grin plastered on his face. He couldn't resist it. "Granny." "Yep, worth it." The face the old hag made was worth it. He sure had missed the times he could tease her, especially since she died in the war. A shadow of regret passed by him, but it dissolved into the hopeful air. "I see he's got your tongue," Tsunade said, not glaring but somewhat amused. Naruto heard his mother's laugh from the kitchen. "Yeah, can't really think through what he says. Hopefully Emi will be able to hold her tongue," she said, entering the kitchen with a plate of baked goods. Something Naruto never knew about his mother, she was actually an amazing cook. But he appreciated when anyone would cook for him. "But I have a feeling she's gotten more of Minato's traits, rather than my own," she said. "She's much more collected, even at 4 months. Naruto couldn't help but inwardly agree. He nodded to himself and then grabbed whatever smelled amazing on the plate, and dashed out of the front door. "I'm going to the park," he yelled. Kushina sighed, shaking her head. Placing the plate on the counter, she turned to Tsunade. "So what was it you wanted to talk to me about?" she asked. "It's about the Kyuubi," she said. "The Kyuubi?" Kushina's hand went to her stomach. "What about it?" Tsunade sighed. "I was sensing the chakra around the village, something I normally do when I get here, and I was expecting to feel just your Kyuubi," she said. "But it seems Naruto has inherited it." "Inherited it? But the Kyuubi's just as strong as before, so how does he have the Kyuubi's chakra?" Kushina leaned against the counter. Her mind was spinning at what she had heard. "There are 2 Kyuubis. I don't know how, and I don't know why, but there is a Kyuubi sealed into your son. Many people could look at someone who's suffering and turn around. Just close their eyes and walk away, without a second thought. Not because they are full of hate, but simply because it's easy to do. However, someone who has trained their hearts to stop and help, is someone who is truly good. Sure, their instinct may have been to keep walking, but they have trained their hearts to want to be good. That is when someone's good. In that moment, there are many other things that can make someone good, may it be hard or easy, but it just depends on whether you are willing to stop and do something." Kushina was someone who tended to do so. Her determination and stubbornness can be only a mask of her emotions that just want to let everything be heard. Something that Minato grew to love with utmost certainty. "Hokage-sama," a voice called from Minato's office door. He looked up, taking a breath, and sitting up. "Come in." His assistant walked in, papers in her arms. "Your wife has asked for your presence at home," she said. Minato raised his brows. Normally, Kushina wasn't one to wait, she would just walk right into his office and talk to him. Either it was very good, or very bad. He stood up, thanking Aki as he walked past her and began walking down the hall. Normally, he just flashed there, but he was enjoying his thinking time in the office, so he took some time to think before flashing off. He was positive his son had awakened. Maybe Kushina noticed something off about him? But ever since Emi was born, he's been acting weird, so it wouldn't make sense for her to notice now. Maybe he said something that clued something they didn't know yet. Did he scare her? Was this even about Naruto? Was something wrong with him? Possibilities ran through his head like a wildfire on a dead field. He didn't notice that he was at his front door until it flung open. "Were you planning on standing out there all day, Minato?" Kushina asked, looking at him strangely. "Something bothering you?" Startled slightly, he gave a half-felt chuckle and pushed a hand behind his head. "Well, actually yeah, I thought something was wrong. You sorta sent Aki to tell me to come home," he said, hoping there was a mistake. He'd rather have a small waste in time than an actual crisis. Kushina's brow furrowed. "Yeah, I did. Then there was silence. "Well?" Minato asked, stepping inside to find everything normal. Relief flooded through him as he saw their daughter playfully smiling at him as he entered the room. Kushina sighed. "Suwande came over today," she began, getting Minato attention. She had said that she was sensing the chakra around the village, taking a seat at the table. She said that, as usual, she could feel the Kyuubi's chakra within myself, but she felt it somewhere else too. Minato's eyes widened. The Kyuubi escaped? What, how? It didn't escape, Minato. There's just another, inside-out sun. She had expected to see a lot of things in Minato's eyes when she said this. She thought she'd see shock. Maybe confusion. Hell, she thought she'd see even anger. But she didn't expect to see nothing. Absolutely nothing. He just stared at her, as if he were solving a puzzle. So it came back with him, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. What? Kushina leaned close over the table to look into his eyes. Is there something you need to tell me? There was a hint of aggression in that statement, but she kept her temper under control. Minato sat down across from her. I didn't think it was possible. It was only supposed to transfer their minds. How could this? Minato. Kushina yelled, slamming a hand on the table. What's going on? Is Naruto in danger? She asked, pain and agitation ripping through her voice. Her eyes flicked back and forth in his own and he couldn't help but give a tired sigh. Listen, Kushina, I didn't think that it was something I should share. I mean, I don't even think he knows if I know. The only reason I know is because of Kakashi. Kakashi? What does this have to do with Kakashi? Minato, I swear, if you're hiding something. Naruto's mind is from the future. And again, silence. Excuse me? Kushina furrowed her brow. Naruto's mind? The future? What are you even talking about? Minato put his hands up in defense. Well, I don't know all the details. But Kakashi told me just before Naruto was born, that the Kyuubi was going to escape and a man would attack the village. Though it never happened, he still seemed nervous about something, about Naruto. Soon I began to connect dots here and there and I knew that Naruto was coming back with him and someone else did too, but he asked me not to tell anyone because it could endanger them, it could endanger our son. Our son? You think I'd endanger our son? My son? Ouch, that one stung. No, I was just thinking it'd be safer. I know I may be a blabbermouth at times, but I wouldn't go around gossiping about my son. God, Minato, who do you think I am? I wouldn't even think about hurting Naruto, she cursed, continuing to lean over the table further. Minato sighed, taking in a deep breath. I know you wouldn't do that, Kushina, please know that. Kakashi had told me not to tell anyone and I'm still trying to figure some things out. I didn't really think it was necessary to tell you. He looked her in the eyes, his filled with a knowing guilt. I'm sorry, truly, I am. She leaned back, crossing her arms. I know, she breathed. This is just a little surprising, ya know? Chuckling at his wife's vocabulary, he nodded. Maybe if we had Kakashi explain some things to us, it'd help a little, he suggested. Nodding with him, she leaned up and stretched a hand to touch his own. Yeah? Kakashi sneezed, earning a look from Obito and Rin. He shrugged and put his hands into his pockets. They say when you sneeze, a pretty girl is talking about you. Obito snorted. How on earth do you even sneeze with that thing on? He asked, tilting his head back. Kakashi shrugged. I've always worn this thing, it's strange to have it off. I suppose I just sneeze like a normal person, he sighed. Obito furrowed his brow. You know, why don't you take that off? He suggested. Kakashi shook his head. Why not you take off your pants? Obito recoiled. Wah, no. Why would I take off my pants? Why would I take off my mask? It's not the same, Kakashi. Obito shoved his hands into his pockets. Let's just get back to the village, it's been a long mission. Kakashi nodded. Sure. Sakura sat on the bench of the park. She enjoyed watching other kids play, and if she felt like it, she'd play herself. She found that the only reasons older kids didn't play little kids games was because they thought they were little kids games. The fact was, it was still a whole lot of fun. She smiled in memory of playing cops and robbers. She smiled in memory of getting Naruto into jail and him complaining. She enjoyed these memories. She enjoyed the real hope in this life. She heard footsteps behind her and she turned to see Naruto walk up to her. Sakura-chan, he greeted, sitting beside her. How you've been? He asked casually, swinging his legs under him. She smiled back. Good. She was in a chipper mood, and she noticed her voice squeak in a happy tone. "So why do you wear that ribbon?" Naruto questioned, pointing to the red ribbon that was tied around her head, pulling her hair back. "What do you mean? I always have worn this," she said, looking at him strangely. "It keeps my hair out of my face," she said, somewhat in defense. Naruto shrugged. "Well, I think you look awesome anyway." His honestly caught Sakura by surprise. Normally he had a "too cool for you" act. She just shrugged it off, pulling some of her hair behind her ear. "How's Emi?" she asked. Naruto grinned. "Good. It's awesome to have a little sister," he said honestly. Sakura tilted her head at this. "You mean her crying a lot doesn't bother you?" She leaned against the back of the bench, enjoying the small breeze that flew by. He shrugged in response. I guess it does. I don't care though, having a real family's cool." Now this really got Sakura thinking. Of course it was good to have a real family, but Naruto wouldn't know any different. Or this Naruto wouldn't know any different. Had he awakened? Why hadn't he told her about Oh? Naruto wouldn't know either. Oh, what a bother life could be. Hatching a quick idea, she put her fist up, about ready to pound the Namikaze's head into the cement. As soon as she let her fist fly towards him, he flung his hands up, expecting the oncoming blast. And the most shocking part, or not shocking, was the fact that he didn't say anything to stop her. As if he had expected to get hit for no reason. Now, as annoying as this was to Sakura, she knew that the new Naruto wouldn't scream and ask her what he did wrong. Considering that Sakura never hit him ever, or not like she had in their old life, she knew Naruto shouldn't expect a hit. So why, pray tell, did he? "Naruto," she said, stopping midair and putting her arm back at her side. "Why were you expecting me to hit you?" She cocked her head, acting as innocent as possible. Naruto noticed her fist was no longer targeting his head, so he peeked out from his shell of arms and gave a weak laugh. "Come on, Sakura-chan, it's not like that would be the first." Naruto's eyes widened. Damn it. He tried to quickly recover. Tried to dodge a hit. "Ya know, with Sasuke and I fighting like we do." Naruto, Sakura suddenly got really close, her nose inches from his own. Taking a deep breath, he pushed unnecessary thoughts behind. "Are you awake?" This caught Naruto's puzzlement. "Sakura-chan, I think I'd know if I were sleeping or not." She sighed, mentally slapping herself for thinking he wasn't as dense. "Who's out, sensei?" "What do you mean, Sakura-chan?" "Kakashi-sensei taught us for a while." He stopped again. What was with him slipping up? Damn it, he'd be found out for sure. He hadn't even talked to this about Kakashi yet. He was still getting his bearings straight with this new life. Why did one conversations with Sakura have to mess it up? A grin formed on Sakura's lips. "You should be careful who you let that slip to, Naruto." Her hand came up towards his forehead and she playfully flicked him. "It's good to see you, Baka." For a second, Naruto just stared into her eyes. It wasn't until another few seconds did he let himself smile. "Sakura-chan," he leaned forward and grabbed her in a hug. Normally, Sakura would recoil and shove him back, calling him some name, but this time, she let herself lean into him. She let herself sigh and take in his scent. She let herself wrap her own arms around his torso and relax. It felt good, and it was hard to believe they were 5. Naruto pulled back, a grin playing on his lips again. "So, looks like everything worked out." She nodded. "Kakashi saved Obito-san and Rin-san. He even went as far as to protect your parents," she agreed. Naruto just turned back and watched as some of their friends raced around. "Yeah," he breathed. It was silent between the two of them for a bit. A comfortable one that didn't cause an awkward pause or the need to speak. Just a relaxing silence. "Well," Naruto huffed, hopping off the bench. "I'm gonna play tag," he yelled, running towards the group. Following suit, Sakura chased after him, not bothering to fix the red ribbon that was falling out of her hair. "Wait up," she peeped. Are dreams actually dreams? Or are they hopes for the future, ideas for better lives, love for to be lovers? Are they simply a wall that stands between reality and fantasy? Are they only our own limits? Our own desires? Yet, if dreams are truly only walls that stand between, what will happen when they fall? This wall will fall. Reality will be reborn. Are dreams actually possible? Minato walked in the wake of the morning sun. The clouds that had been gathering along the horizon seemed to bring a peaceful warning of a coming storm. It wasn't cold, nor was it chilly, but a humid mist gave a cooling blast in the morning air. It's times as such that the Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves could think without second thoughts. He was simply content with the answer that popped first. But sadly, much was on his mind, and the weather wasn't making a difference. The reason why? His wife was following him, and both had the same thoughts in their heads. Who was their son? As painful it was to ask that question, they asked it. Did they truly know their son, or only a shadow of him? Who was Naruto Namikaze? It hurt that they didn't know. They were both headed towards the Hokage office to get the mission report from Kakashi ASAP. Normally it's Rin who runs it by, but since Kakashi needed to answer some unanswered questions for them, it seemed only logical to have him run it by. Was it bad that he was scared for the answers he'd bring? And not the answers for the mission report? Was it bad that she was scared for the answers she'd hear? And not because she didn't want to listen? Kushina held Emi in her arms. The baby looked curiously about the village, watching the early birds set up some stands and shops for the oncoming day. Some would wave, she'd respond with raised brows. Some would say, "Hello," she'd respond with a cocked head. The world was a mysterious place, and she was still learning new things every second. How easy life was when a baby. How simply answers came. Minato, though much on his mind, enjoyed the greetings and warm welcomes of others. He slowed his pace so that Kushina was walking beside him as he let Emi's hand wrap around his first finger. He didn't have too much to worry about. The village was at peace, the day was beautiful, Naruto was at home with Obito keeping an eye on him, everything was in order. The only thing to dread was the coming future. The coming conversation with Kakashi. When they finally appeared at the office door, they saw Kakashi waiting there, hands in his pockets, reading that stupid book. "Hello Minato-sensei." Kakashi stopped as he looked straight at Kushina, silently slipping the book into his back pocket. "Good to see you too," he said cautiously, not sure what to make of Kushina's far-off look. Normally, she'd have his head pounded into the ground when she saw him with that book. "Kakashi," Minato greeted, "your mission reports'll have to wait." His reasoning was simple, and for a second, Kakashi was about to turn the other direction and walk off to do whatever with the rest of the day. But when Minato opened the door, he briefly left it hanging, as if to say, "Follow me." So Kakashi followed. "Is there something wrong?" he asked casually, not because he didn't care, but because it was just the way he approached things. Minato nodded as Kushina took a seat to the left of his desk. "We've got some questions," he said. Kakashi nodded. "On the sensitive subject I assume has leaked to Kushina, here?" "Yes. Who is our son?" It was a demand, something that caused the room to have a massive wave of silence wash over them. Kushina continued to stare at Kakashi, expecting an answer. Kakashi sighed, "It's not exactly a story I can tell. Not even Naruto has told me everything about his journey. Sakura probably knows more about Naruto's life than I." Kushina nodded. "So it's true," she whispered. "Please, Kakashi, you've got to tell us something. We can't just ask Naruto about his previous life. I know he may have lived before this life, but he's still my 5-year-old boy to me," she pleaded. "I understand, Kushina, I do. I can tell you what I know, but Naruto's life is his own. I can't even begin to understand how much he struggled, and I went through some serious shit," he mumbled to himself. Minato furrowed his brows. "You keep saying that. What do you mean when you say, he's been through a lot?" he asked. Kakashi looked to Minato. "You understand that he was the Nine-Tails Jinchuriku after Kushina, right?" Minato nodded. Kushina just seemed to listen. Kakashi switched to look at Kushina. Naruto never truly met his parents in his previous life. He was orphaned when the Kyuubi escaped shortly after you gave birth to him. A man attacked the village, and both you and Minato sacrificed yourself to save your son, and to save the village. Kushina's eyes widened and Emi looked wordlessly at Kakashi, as if understanding the intensity of the moment. His whole life he was shunned, hated, abused. The villagers couldn't see past the pleading boy he was and only saw the demon within. He was merely a case for the wicked beast, and Naruto felt the wear and tear of it all. Much like you, Kushina, he was alone. Academy students reflected their parents' acts and treated him like trash. Eventually, he looked past and out the Hokage's window. He thought his parents abandoned him for the same reason. He was simply a demon, nothing less, nothing more. Tears could be seen gathering in Kushina's eyes as Minato watched Kakashi speak with a tension that almost broke the entire sanity of the room. A smile graced Kakashi's face, and his mask shifted ever so slightly, his eyes lightened. However, he still lived through it all, facing every day with unspoken hope. No matter how many times the villagers would push him down, he'd just get up and up again, claiming he'd be Hokage. Shortly after, he graduated from the academy, being placed on my own team. Sasuke Uchina, Sakura Haruno, Naruto Uzumaki. They had their ups and downs in teamwork, always bickering, always trying to show each other up. Sasuke was the last of his clan, after his brother massacred his entire clan. That's a story for another time, but know that Itachi was always a good ninja, a great one. Kakashi took a long breath, letting the pause soak in before speaking again. Naruto proved himself to the village time and time again. Soon he was the hero of the Hidden Leaf, known around the shinobi world. However, soon there was no Hidden Leaf after a long war. There weren't many survivors, but Sakura, myself, and Naruto were some of the few. And that, Kakashi looked up at them, that's where we stand now. In a new life, one away from constant war. Emi made a noise, one that seemed to ask for attention, but it was unheard as Kushina and Minato both stared at Kakashi. And he remembers it all? Kushina asked. Kakashi shrugged, maybe. I believe so, because there are slight characteristic changes that I've recognized, but nothing too crazy. Know this, Naruto may remember things from his previous life, but he still knows you both as the loving parents you are, and he's still your son. Kakashi's words seemed to have soaked into the parents who sat in front of him. I know, Kushina sighed, looking up at the ceiling. It's just a little, well, it's hard to grasp the idea of you guys actually time traveling. Kakashi nodded, it took me a while to get used to this life when I first awakened. I'm sure in time, Naruto will get around to telling you guys. Kakashi tried to comfort, but he wondered if what he said was true. Naruto normally tried to weasel his way out of many situations, this one included. Maybe he should get together with Sakura and Naruto and have a quick conversation. Kakashi, Minato trapped the Junin's attention. How old was he when you traveled back, he asked. He was, Kakashi thought for a bit, 22. Minato's eyes widened, then he's basically an adult now, we can't really parent him. Kakashi shook his head, Naruto may have been an excellent shinobi, but he wasn't exactly academically excellent. He's still got a lot to learn, even at the age he was when we left. Minato nodded, something told me he wasn't the wisest of the bunch. A smile made its way to his face as he glanced at the family photo on his desk. Kakashi let loose a light chuckle, maybe not, but his unpredictable ways seemed to always make up for it. Yosh! Naruto yelled, running down the path to the park. I bet you can't beat me, Goggles. Naruto yelled to Obito, who watched amused. Obito sighed. Naruto had called him Goggles ever since he'd seen the picture of him as a genin. You know Naruto, I have a name. Naruto laughed, no duh, Goggles, everyone's got a name. Obito again sighed. Yeah, he said reluctantly. Let's just get to the park? It's a race. Naruto vowed, running ahead. Obito, who had no worries and planned to surprise the blonde munchkin by getting there in his super ninja speed, casually ran after him. He would be able to make up for the slow-paced run when they were almost there. They had gone through a small crowd. When Obito emerged, he found the blonde devil wasn't running in front of him anymore. Damn it, where'd he go? Obito thought, looking side to side. Getting a little nervous, he decided to pick up the pace. He wasn't taken, was he? No, Naruto would have made enough noise to wake Snorlax. Stupid video games, he cursed as he looked for Naruto. He shook his head and focused on getting to the park. Making quick time, he appeared at the steps of the park that led to the playground, swings and benches. Naruto? He asked, looking around. He heard a small, foxy laugh behind him. He spun around, looking Naruto straight in the eyes. Wah! Slow poke. Naruto pointed a finger to Obito and then placing his hands behind his head in a casual manner. Obito just stared at Naruto with a curious and stunned face. How on earth did you get away from me? He asked. Naruto shrugged. Hokage's son? Beginner's luck? Maybe I'm just that awesome. Obito shook his head, this kid may just be the end of him. Decided to leave it be, he turned to walk to the bench. Go have fun, kid. Naruto ran off to play with the other kids in the park as Obito sat down and watched. It had been a while since Obito sat in this park. In fact, he rarely watched Naruto. It was strange for Kakashi to give the mission report, and with Rin working extra in the hospital, he found himself almost wanting to watch the little squirt. He saw Naruto run clumsily up to a bubble-gun-haired girl, both exchanging some words before bolting off with the rest. He smiled, remembering days when he, Rin and Kakashi would run off without a care in the world. He was a lucky man. Normally ninjas didn't even live this long, let alone actually have all their friends and families survive. Even Kakashi's father's still alive and kicking, ready to fight and defend Konoha. Here he sat, a boyfriend to a childhood crush, a brother to a teammate, and a student of a hero. He briefly wondered what the next generation would be like, what they would suffer, or what they would fight through. Whenever the day may come, however, he was eagerly going to watch it grow. No escaping, nowhere, just brokenness, images, hate, fire. The walls loomed above, the roof cowered at the height. Evil lurked in the flames and hate was heard in the seeping air. Gasping heat and tearing flicks rushed past to the center of the storm. Morning moans hummed and floated in the air. Naruto? Huh? Naruto? What's going on? Where am I? Naruto, you've got some nerve. The voice bellowed and echoed in the chaos that surrounded him. He looked but saw no one, he blinked, but nothing changed. What was going on? Who's there? He asked. It wasn't desperate, but it was curious. Naruto was a curious boy after all. He looked down at his hands to find them larger than he remembered. Changing his glance to his clothing, he realized he wasn't aware of anything. Self-consciousness could have kicked in, but it was as if he didn't care. His body glowed in a way he wasn't used to and his fingertips felt tingly. What's going on? Fool, you just had to take us both, didn't you? The voice mumbled. God damn it, all you do is gripe. I'm sick of it, another voice snapped back. Just because you switched hosts doesn't mean you had to go ahead and cry about it for 5 goddamn years. Naruto recognized the voice, but he couldn't place it. His hands reflexively went to his stomach, squeezing what he expected to be the small chub from being a 12-year-old. But none was there. He looked to his stomach, eyes widening. My old body? He looked up to see everything suddenly vanish and replaced with 2 cages, one chained, and another loosely sealed. Kyuubi, he looked up, wondering what was going on. You came back with me? He asked, a small smile tugging at his lips. Ha, brat, I'm surprised you thought you could get rid of me that easily. Going back in time and into another dimension won't get rid of me, he grinned, not evil, but a foxy one. Naruto nodded, good to see you again. Kyuubi. And here I am watching this as if everything's alright. Get me out of here, brat, or I swear I'll tear you apart. The darkness in the chained cage surprised him, and it wasn't until he got a closer look did he see another lone red blazing eye. You're a fool, Namikaze. Your mother was no less, the voice hissed. Naruto furrowed his brows, another. Kyuubi? Fool, you will call me Mizoku Kyuubi. The other side, Naruto, meet my roommate. Roommate, I am a demon lord. As are you. I can't believe you would actually sink so low as to interact with him, he ranted. So you're my mom's Kyuubi? Naruto face faulted. Damn, my mom actually dealt with you? You're one big. Naruto. Naruto stopped and looked to the Kyuubi he knew. A slightly lighter coat pleased him in knowing that he could tell them apart. Besides their attitudes, you'll make him even more pissy. Kyuubi complained. Yeah, sure. Naruto sighed, looking to his furry friend's counterpart. So I guess I'll call you Mizoku-chan? He grinned, shoving his hands into his pockets, only to realize he was without clothes. Why am I like this? I'm all glowing and I'm completely nude. The hell is with this? I'm even in my old body. Kyuubi sighed. Naruto, your body chakra of your old being somehow reserved it to save myself. As well as your life chakra that would result in your remembering your old life when you were 5. Kyuubi leaned further, his eyes closing. Normally, I would have traveled back with you, but due to the seal your idiot father left on here, I was stuck to the other timeline. However, your chakras somehow took my own before completely leaving the dimension, and saved me into another seal. Naruto nodded, seems like I do that. That last day was pretty fuzzy, I barely remember performing the jutsu. That doesn't explain me being nude and glowing though. Brat, you're using your old body's chakra now. Your mental age is what your chakra is forming, therefore you're your older body. Mizoku griped. Naruto rolled his eyes, obviously, why didn't I know that? he said sarcastically. Why you? Stop your bickering. You're both fools and you're both annoying. Kyuubi howled. Naruto, I didn't call you here to argue with him. I called you here because with him here as well, it channels both of our chakra into you. Naruto tilted his head. So is that bad? That just means I'm twice as powerful, no? No, it doesn't. If you use our chakra at the same time, it has a higher risk of taking over your entire being and mind. Naruto's eyes seemed to focus on nothing in particular. So I don't use your chakra anymore? He asked, rubbing the back of his head in thought. No, you just need to take it in small amounts. Make sure nothing goes wrong. Stop coddling him. Once he dies, I'll finally have a minute of damn peace, Mizoku mumbled. Idiot, don't you know if he dies we die? Kyuubi whipped his head towards his counterpart's cage. Death seems better than being a host. Well, I'd rather not watch a war go off between demon foxes, so I'll just be on my way. Naruto shook his head. I'll remember what you said, Kyuubi. Thank you. No problem, kid. Naruto opened his eyes to see his bedroom light shining in his eyes. His mom must have tried to wake him up, and from the looks of it, it didn't work. He groaned and sat up, throwing his feet over the edge of his bed and walking over to the bathroom. The normal routine: go to the bathroom, brush teeth, get dressed, shove head under water so it looked like he took a shode, squeeze the air of the shampoo bottle on his shirt so he smelled clean. Shaking his already drying hair, he walked out to the kitchen where his mom was cooking breakfast. Or that's what he thought. He walked to the counter and found some cold eggs and toast prepared on a platter. Aside from that, a note from his mother. Naruto, I am out with your sister shopping early this morning since Emi needed new clothes for the last day of school. We'll be back soon enough to walk you, unless you have other plans. Much love, Mom. He laughed at her normality in the letter. Normally, since his mother was not a morning person, she would make breakfast, and almost fall asleep while eating it, and make someone else go shopping or whatever. Maybe Emi bribed her, he mentally cringed. I wouldn't put it past her. Emi had the brains of their dad and the manipulation skills of their mom. A deadly combination. She was clever, thought of a comeback like a whip, and she wasn't scared to show off her skills. Many times, he found himself jealous, but he didn't let it get past that. He smiled. Family was his life, and his life was family. He looked back to the plate of cold food and shook his head. Cold eggs and toast was horrible. He took the plate and disposed of its contents in the trash as he made his way to the door. Sasuke was a morning person. Maybe he was out training somewhere. They had performed the genin tests yesterday. Today they were only going to get their headbands and certificate. Making sure he was in his correct attire, he left the house. He no longer wore bright orange. His mother wasn't necessarily against it, and neither was his father, but they both suggested he wear more ninja-appropriate clothing. He now wore a hard chest plate-like cover over a black t-shirt. The cover was much like an Anbu black op vest, but it only had one strap that went diagonal over his shoulder and connected to the opposite side of the lower back. Of course, he needed something orange, so he settled on having an orange leaf design on the front of the plate. It was lightweight, and the padding inside made it quite comfortable. His pants were a tannish khaki and two large pockets on each side under both of his weapon pouches. Yep, 2 weapon pouches. His father was the same, being able to use both hands in battle, a normal skill for a ninja, but when you had both weapon pouches, it suggested that you could skillfully use both hands. Both he and his sister worked hard on obtaining this skill, and Naruto was proud of it. He found his body learning quicker than it did in his past life, and that may have to do with the fact that he already went through it, but it was hard to understand some things still, as if his body just forgot. Either way, he was excelling. After all, that's what it took to be Hokage, no? He grinned as he quickened his pace towards the training grounds in the woods Sasuke and Itachi commonly used. Knowing he could run and be able to make it in less than a minute, he began a steady jog, too tired to really run. Besides, Sasuke may not even be there. Peeved, Sasuke's always training, he thought. He enjoyed this innocent Sasuke, the one who knew love and understood struggle's gain. His father stopped the Uchiha massacre before Danzo was even able to bring it to the council. Itachi still thought like a Hokage, but his need to be a hero was dulled in the peaceful lifestyle they seemed to all have adapted to. Before Naruto even made it to the training field, he heard clinks and clanks of kunai hitting the ground. He could hear the thunks of many getting into the tree, some whizzing by. Making sure the sound subsided instead of charging in and getting impaled, he casually walked where he could sense Sasuke's chakra. "Sasuke?" Naruto called, making sure he wasn't mistaken. Over here, he heard a tired sigh. Naruto walked through some brush and around some trees to find Sasuke sprawled out on the ground of the forest. "Geez, Sasuke. You're overdoing it. I heard those last shots, you only got 10 kunai in the tree, you can normally hit at least 20. He didn't mean any sarcasm in the comment, he was completely serious about what he said, so he was confused when Sasuke laughed. "At least 20, the Uchiha sighed. "You know, my father still keeps saying that Itachi's going to carry out this clan to the peak. He's going to lead the Uchiha into greatness," he said. Despite their quarreling every now and then, he trusts him with his life. Sasuke looked up to his friend, and here I am, able to hit kunai to a tree. Naruto's eyebrows furrowed. "Sasuke, your dad's just as proud of you, ya know. Does he brag about Itachi when Itachi's actually around?" he asked, shoving his hands into his pockets casually. Sasuke sighed, shaking his head and sitting up. "But when he's not around, he's a god." Naruto nodded. "Maybe he praises you when you're not around, after all, you wouldn't know, no?" Sasuke shrugged. "When do you get all wise, huh?" he asked as he stood up and brushed his pants off. Punching his arm playfully, he rolled his eyes, "And when you'd get all emo, oh wait, never mind. Shut up, Dobi." They didn't separate the distance between them, however, as they began their trek to their last day at the academy. Naruto swung his arms behind his head as Sasuke tucked his into his pockets. They made casual conversation as villagers began to open their stands and greet the Hokage's son and the young Uchiha. A voice called behind them, and before either one of the boys turned their head, they knew who it was. "Hey Sakura-chan," Naruto called, waving an energetic hand to Sakura. She waved back with just as much gusto as she approached the boys. "Hey guys," she smiled. "Wow, Naruto, you're up early. What happened this morning?" she asked, a playful and teasing smile on her face. Naruto's mind flashed to his dream, but he pushed the thought away. "I guess I was just excited," he brushed her comment aside. Sakura, finding this attitude quite strange for her blonde-headed friend, she marked it in her mind in the "Ask Naruto question later" section. Walking besides them, she looked to Sasuke. "You think we'll end up being on the same team?" she asked, casual enough to not suspect anything. Sasuke laughed. "And why would the Hokage do that? The two top students and the smartest one? Yeah, and then leave all the weaklings for the rest, I suppose?" Sasuke asked, making Sakura furrow her brows and stick her tongue out at him. "You know, tongues are meant to be inside your mouth," he glanced at her. She rolled her eyes, getting in pace with Naruto. "Did Kakashi say anything to you?" she whispered. Naruto shook his head, like always, "Nope." Sakura sighed. "Why must he be so? I don't even know how to describe it. Lazy? Annoying? Avoiding? Perverted? You know what, Kakashi's just Kakashi," Naruto reasoned out loud, their whispers raising into laughs and giggles, to which Sasuke looked squarely at them. "You two are weird. So it's set up? Yeah, you'll be training Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. And you're sure it's fair? I mean, they're the highest in the class." Kakashi, Minato sighed, "We've gone over this. If you truly believe that they are a team worth forming, then I fully trust you. Why are you now having doubts about this?" Minato sat against his desk and looked sideways at Kakashi. The Junin looked away. "Bad memories, I guess," he sighed and stood straight, nodding respectfully. "I'll get ready to meet them, I suppose." Minato nodded. "Yes, they're almost done at school. You're going to be late, Kakashi, if you don't hurry." Kakashi chuckled. "You know me, I take my sweet time." Minato rolled his eyes. "I know, and that's what worries me. My son better not pick up those habits," he warned, an eyebrow arched. Kakashi put his hands up in defense. "Well, considering I was his squad captain his entire past life, I don't expect any more of me to rub off on him," he said. Minato nodded. "Of course, now," he took a breath. "Go on, then." "Hi," and with that, Kakashi disappeared to start Team 7 off again. Hopefully, on a better path this time around. In the outskirts of Konoha, there is wildlife that ceases to amaze few who walk by it. The walls that stretch tall over the evergreens and large oaks let their shadow linger in the beating sun. Clouds cool the blaze of the day. The breeze brings life to every frozen moment. As the buildings stand and villagers bustle about their usual day, it's hard to find a sore thumb in such a unique crowd. And yet, there was one walking. His attire was unusual. It was a white cloak with a black and intricate design that swirled to the bottom near his dark boots. He wore a loosely tied mask, somewhat like a scarf, and a white headband with no symbol. His clothing was light, but it flopped over his body in a way ninja never enjoyed, yet he walked like a shinobi. He held his weight like one. He made his way past some bunches of crowds and forced his head downwards, not looking up. His hands held to his side, gloved and covered. He stopped glancing upward for a moment to find the Konoha Academy standing there, right in front of him. His hands lifted as he performed signs, fingers crossed, thumbs straight, palms firm, and then suddenly, gone. His figure disappeared as if he never walked the grounds, and the villagers moved on without seeming to realize his absence. Iruka appeared in the doorway of his classroom, his face unreadable, but as soon as the click was heard when his hand turned the knob, he grew a smile and walked inside. "Okay class, as I'm sure you already know, today will be your last day at the academy," he smiled. Cheers erupted in the classroom as he looked down at his paper. "Now, let me read off some team names." Naruto nudged Sasuke. "I bet we'll be on the same team," he whispered, earning a lose of curiosity from the Uchiha. "Ha, like that would happen." Sakura leaned over in their conversation and gave a knowing look to Naruto who, in return, winked. "I bet, well you have to take me out to ramen if I'm right." "What'd you say, Sasuke?" the blonde asked enthusiastically. His hands perched on the nape of his neck and his eyes burned in determination at his friend. He was really craving ramen today. Sasuke sighed. "If it'll get you to stop fidgeting," he smirked, "you have to buy me my ninja gear if you're wrong." "Deal," Naruto replied almost instantly. Sasuke again glanced at him in his sideways view and gave a look of curiosity to Sakura, who normally could tell what the weirdo was thinking. However, he was disappointed to find her not paying attention to their bet and playing with the spare sheet of paper on her desk. He looked back to Naruto and poked him in the arm. "Oi, what do you have planned, Dobi?" Naruto clicked his tongue. "Name-calling isn't nice, Sasuke. Common, I know you have something up your." Team 7. Naruto Namikaze. Their conversation stopped. Sakura Haruno. Sasuke gulped. "And Sasuke Uchiha. And there goes his allowance." Naruto fist pumped with Sakura and gave a foxy grin to Sasuke. "You heard that clearly, right Sasuke? Looks like you're treating us." "What, us? I do not remember agreeing to pay for Sakura," Sasuke said, pushing his eyebrows together. Naruto gave an innocent look. "Oops, I must have forgotten." "You don't mind, right Sasuke?" he played, batting his eyelashes in a quite gay-ish manner. In a moment, Sasuke had stood up and moved to the desk in the back, trying to make a point. The laughing between Naruto and Sakura, however, didn't stop. As Iruka continued to call teams and names, the class was slowly falling silent again as he announced the last team. "Class," he began, "go to the assigned spot I announced with your team, and you'll meet your squad leader there." Sasuke raised his hand, but quickly put it down again. Both Naruto and Sakura were relaxed in their chairs having a dull conversation. Maybe Sasuke missed the cue that they were waiting in the classroom, because Iruka too left without another word. Minutes passed and teams could be seen leaving the academy though the classroom window they sat in. "Where the hell is he?" Sasuke muttered. Naruto shrugged, turning around to face him. "Probably late?" "No duh," Sasuke furrowed his brows, "but he's a Junin." "Junin shouldn't be late." The Uchiha clasped his hands together and lowered his head to the desk. "Some ninja we get for a squad leader." Sakura sighed. "You have no idea," she whispered, exchanging a look with Naruto before both gave a short laugh. "I'm sure he'll be here, Sasuke." "Well, he better come quickly." The door opened and their voices fell silent. Honestly, Naruto wasn't sure if Kakashi would be able to convince his father to assign them all together. Obito Uchiha was supposed to train Sasuke so that he could get training with the Sharingan, but since they were waiting for a while, it was pretty obvious it'd be Kakashi. Hopefully. Not that there was anything wrong with Obito, but Kakashi had been their sensei for years. "Yo," a dull voice rang through the silence that raged in the room. "Sorry I'm late." Kakashi entered the room, looking at the three students that sat down. Sasuke, who seemed to be the same, Sakura, who was no longer scolding Naruto, and Naruto, who no longer needed too much scolding. They'd grown up. Sasuke gave a tired sigh. I'm a little bit surprised, sensei. You're a tad bit early, Sakura said as Kakashi signed them to get up and follow him. As serious as Sakura was, Sasuke took it as sarcasm. You guys know where the rooftop access is? Kakashi asked, getting his hand signs ready. When they all nodded, Sasuke with a confused face, he poofed away leaving the genin standing there. Rooftop access? What, are we meeting on the roof? However, the only thing that responded was the clacking shoes of Sakura and Naruto running down the hall. Hey, wait up. When they had reached the roof, Kakashi was already sitting down with a book pulled out. Took you long enough? We ran the whole way, Kakashi. Naruto shook his fist in the air threateningly. It went unnoticed, however, when Kakashi asked them to sit down. Now you know the drill, Kakashi drawled. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. What drill? Sigh, name, dreams, hopes for the future, favorite things, and whatever you think we need to know. I'll start. Naruto grinned. I like ramen and I enjoy training with my dad. My dream is to become a good Hokage that will protect the village. I guess my hopes for the future is to have a family of my own, settle down and all, and then that's about it. Sasuke looked at him funny. You don't know your own name? What? The blonde asked dumbly. Your name. You didn't say your name, Dobi. With an eye roll, Naruto announced, Naruto Namikaze's the name. Enthusiasm, I like it, Kakashi said with a fake eye smile. Note the sarcasm, Sakura said dryly. I'm Sakura Haruno, and unlike Naruto, I actually know my name. AHG, you guys are mean. I enjoy medical ninjutsu, my dream is to become the greatest medical kunoichi, and my hopes for the future is to have a calm peaceful life. I suppose a family could fit into that, she thought out loud. My favorite thing is spending time with friends, she said after a few moments. Kakashi nodded, seems good enough. He ignored the pestering glare from the pink-headed genin and turned to Sasuke. Your turn, Sasuke. Sasuke nodded, I train with my dad and my brother, my hope is to become a strong ninja and redeem my clan. My dream is, he looked towards the Hokage monument. Becoming Hokage, the strongest yet, and led this village into a new era. Kakashi's eyes widened and looked in awe at the Uchiha in front of him. Some dream, compared to the last. Geez Sasuke, Naruto gave him a dead look. Way to ruin my dream. Of course, similar thoughts to Kakashi's were running through Naruto's mind. His friend had truly been redeemed. Kakashi smiled. Now, how about the test? It was early, but since Kakashi knew they would pass anyway, he didn't want to waste much time. Test? Sakura played along, trying to hide her amusement. Kakashi, playing along, put a thoughtful finger to his chin. Oh, you don't know? You guys aren't genin yet. But, Sasuke looked at Kakashi with suspicion. We graduated from the academy. Well, you see, the academy is for sorting the hopeless students from the weaklings. He grinned, his eyes squinting in an unreadable manner. This test will sort the weaklings from the okay ones, he explained, getting a book from his pouch. Whenever you guys are ready. Naruto, who was now standing up, and to Sasuke's amazement, taking this whole, not being genin yet, pretty well, placed his hands in his pockets. Rules, sensei? The oh-so-innocent, Naruto asked. Kakashi knocked the side of his head, the fake smile still unnaturally plastered to his face. Oh, it must have slipped my mind. Sasuke face faulted. Am I dreaming? This seems pretty lame. His thoughts were halted however when he heard a ringing coming from Kakashi's waist. These bells, each of you has to get one. There was silence as Kakashi watched his three students. He waited and waited and waited. There's only 2 bells, Sasuke said dumbly, not really wanting to be the one to speak up. However, his 2 idiot teammates must have not noticed. Then one of you will go back to the academy, no? And if you're not prepared to kill me, you won't get the bells. Kakashi looked up at them, both eyes flickering between each student. Let's see who's got the skill here. Go. All 3 flashed into the nearby brush and stayed quiet and low. Naruto, who had gotten into a tree to see the high ground, Sakura, who had found a cozy spot in between a fallen tree and some bushes, and Sasuke who was crouched close enough to the battlefield to see, and far enough to be out of sight. Kakashi waited in the center for a moment, looking around, giving a satisfied nod he couldn't see them. Naruto shuffled out of the tree and quietly made his way to Sasuke, his feet barely making a sound. However, the Uchiha turned around. "Naruto," he whispered expectantly. "Look, I have an idea." The blonde Namikaze squeezed under the bush and leaned down beside the proud raven. "Oh no," Sasuke's eyes widened. "This could be dangerous." Naruto rolled his eyes. Just because I'm a little dense," Sasuke snorted, "it doesn't mean I'm completely useless." Sasuke just shrugged. "So what's the plan?" he asked. "What's your brilliant idea?" Naruto grinned. "All three of us go at him at once." "Teamwork, that's my plan." He grabbed a kunai from his pouch and nodded towards where Sakura was craftily hiding. Sakura-chan's good with chakra control, and with the moves she's been practicing lately, she should be able to get Kakashi off track. While he's off track, I'll use a basic wind jutsu to push him towards Sakura-chan's attack. "That's where you come in." Naruto turned towards his friend. "You're the fastest here, you'll run towards him while he's flustered and grab the two bells." Sasuke nodded. "He's Junin, and trained to not fall for distractions," Sasuke said expertly. "How can we know he won't just use a replacement jutsu?" "We don't," Naruto sighed. "We just have to bank on the little hope that he thinks we're stupid." Sasuke almost lost his balance in his crouched position. "How on earth would him thinking we're retards actually help us?" he hissed, making sure not to yell. "'Cause retards wouldn't go for distraction," the blonde responded. Sasuke again shook his head. "There has to be a better way to get around him. That idea may work, we need one that will work. Plus, we've got time to think." Sasuke's right. A voice spoke behind them as they turned to see Sakura. "I've got a better plan, one that will work." There was a brief silence. "Well, what is it?" Naruto pushed, obviously open for another plan. Sakura scrunched beside them and hunched her back to make sure she wasn't visible to the Junin. "I've set up a simple kunai trap on the other side. It's aiming right for Kakashi-sensei," she said. Both Uchiha and Namikaze still listening. "Naruto, can you disguise yourself as a kunai?" Sakura questioned. Naruto nodded and formed a hand sign without activating the jutsu. "You and your shadow clone need to go to the other side. You'll disguise yourself as a kunai and then let your clone throw it at Kakashi?" Sakura furrowed her brows. "If this trick works." "What trick?" Naruto asked, turning back to Kakashi. "Just another second." Sakura pushed herself to the ground. "Duck," she hissed, both boys ducking almost instantly as a snap was heard from the other side of the clearing. However, nothing flew overhead. "Just as I hoped," Sakura smirked. Kakashi had caught the kunai with his first finger. It now hung loosely from his hand as he continued to read the book. Sasuke turned to look at her. "I get it, you want Naruto to turn into a kunai so Kakashi will catch it. He'll grab the bells easily that way," he said in a low tone. "But he'll be able to sense Naruto easily. The Dobi doesn't know what lowering chakra even means." Sasuke gave a frown. "That's where distractions come into view. Sasuke, you'll throw a fireball jutsu at him first, then I'll come in from behind," Sakura explained. Naruto nodded, understanding why Sakura would want Sasuke to go first. Sasuke, the one who hadn't come back in time with them, would be the one who wouldn't know the true meaning behind this test, so Kakashi shouldn't suspect anything from the proud Uchiha. It was brilliant. "Got it." Naruto grinned, making signs and creating a shadow clone. "Come on, you know the drill," he said to the clone who nodded enthusiastically as they raced towards the other side of the clearing. When Sakura saw the kunai fly through the air again and as Kakashi caught it again without lifting his eye, she nudged Sasuke to run out with his fireball jutsu. Sasuke stood, racing out and quickly making the signs, "Fireball jutsu," he yelled, huffing air out and creating the intense flames of the Uchiha clan. Sakura ran towards the other side and jumped out, pumping chakra into her fists and letting it loose when she hit ground right behind Kakashi. The Junin, who followed Sasuke's movements easily, just caught Sakura's attack and jumped up in the air, swiftly landing back down on the ground with a satisfied smile. "Not quick enough guys, but nice teamwork," he nodded, putting his book away. "I guess I'll save that for later," he said. Actually, a voice chirped behind him, "You can start reading again, Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi turned to see Naruto holding two bells in his hand. That foxy grin that he had almost all the time was plastered to his face as he jingled the bells in front of him. "Guess who got the bells?" Naruto laughed, bring his arm up to throw the bells to Sasuke and Sakura. However, in a small second, Kakashi poofed away and reappeared behind Naruto, a kunai held to his neck. "Not you," Kakashi said as the bells poofed away too. "Tisk tisk, you should have thought about that, Naruto." And to both Sakura and Sasuke's amusement, the blonde poofed away, again. This time, a kunai held to Kakashi's neck, and Naruto snatching the bells. "I did, geez Kakashi, have a little faith, Tossing the bells to his teammates, Naruto dropped the kunai and gave a fist pump to the air above him. "Ha, take that Kakashi-sensei, looks like we beat you good," he bragged, prancing over to Sasuke and Sakura. Kakashi just watched the scene play out before him. Sure, he had let them get the slip on him, and he was perfectly fine with it. This team, it would redeem their unlucky past. With another large and satisfied smile, Kakashi proudly announced, "You pass." Emi stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. She wasn't looking at her red hair, grown to her chin, but put in a loose ponytail. She wasn't looking at her shirt, nor her shorts, but her forehead and what was on it. She gave a smile to the mirror. "I'm a ninja," she whispered, sticking her thumb to her forehead protector. It was truly a strange thought. She had wanted to be a ninja her whole entire life. She trained, she learned, she knew how to be a ninja. And now that the fateful day finally came, she couldn't help but feel nervous. She ran her hands through her overhanging bangs for, probably, the 100th time that morning. She wasn't nervous to meet her team, nor was she nervous to go on missions. All of that was simple. Her family was the problem. She had a lot to live up to. Her mother, being the vicious and outgoing ninja she was, and still is, isn't someone you can just become with a few ninja tricks. Her father was the yellow flash of the hidden leaf, not to mention the Hokage. You can't just say you're gonna be great, and then become great. And her brother didn't count. Somehow, he did everything he put his mind to. He is one of the most strongest shinobi, he has too many friends to count, and he still seems to always have time for family. The only thing he hadn't accomplished yet was one thing, becoming Hokage. Though he had always said there was another dream that he may never accomplish. Of course, he had never told a soul just what the dream was. Naruto was walking through the village, on his way to the hospital where Sakura works. She had signed up for the hospital as soon as she had her Chunin vest on her back, and when they all became Junin, she practically was handed the position of head of the hospital. Sasuke was running the police business with his father, his brother in the Anbu. Sasuke had said he didn't want to join the Anbu, and though Naruto saw many reasons not to, always had picture Sasuke being a part of it. Maybe Team 7 changed him. He hadn't gotten the curse mark, Orochimaru never attacked them in the Chunin exams. He didn't need revenge, his clan was spared by their Hokage. He wasn't cold, he had a loving family to raise him right. He wasn't selfish, he had a team to share with his whole ninja career. Naruto smiled at the memories they all shared. They had a mission again, the three of them like old times, going with some new genin fresh from training. Of course, that was in a few weeks. Before he noticed, his hand was reaching for the hospital door, opening it as he had done many times. He slickly walked inside, and was already heading up the stairs, waving to a few people who sat in the waiting room. He always avoided the desk. The girls who would sit there would get him into hour-long conversations that he was too nice to drop. He snuck upstairs where his favorite kunoichi's office was. His hand reached up for the door, but before he even knocked, the door was swung open, revealing an urgent-faced Sakura. Of all oof. Sakura stumbled backwards, somehow balancing the paper she held. "Naruto?" She looked up at her teammate and friend. Naruto gave her his famous smile. Sakura-chan. "Seems you're pretty busy, he said, placing his hand behind his head, not thinking to move out of the way from the door. Sakura nodded. "Yeah, hospital's pretty busy lately. Nothing serious, just some illness that's easy to fix, but it seems all the nurses are missing." She squinted her eyes to glance around Naruto and in the hall. Not even one person was seen. She looked up at Naruto, then checked the time on the clock in her office. "And I think I know why," she sighed. Naruto was a popular guy, with him being the Hokage's son, and his increasingly handsome looks as of late, almost every girl was trying to impress him. It was 3 o'clock about, the time that Naruto would always come into the hospital to check in on things. Normally just talk to Sakura, but they seemed to never stay too long. Naturally, the girls caught on to his daily routine and began to come to the waiting desk, hoping to have a little conversation. Sad thing was, Naruto was completely oblivious. You know, Naruto, maybe you should start being more sneaky about your visits here. Sakura brushed past him and began walking down the hall, knowing he'd follow her. What, you don't like my visits, Sakura-chan? He asked, a fake, hurt tone in his voice. With a playful shrug, Sakura replied, so what if I don't? He rolled his eyes and caught in step with her. Well, I could always visit Sasuke instead, he began, a sly smile above his chin, now slightly stubbled. I mean, sometimes he'll reply to me, he said jokingly. Sasuke was never one for conversation, even in this timeline. Sakura laughed, well then, looks like you've got your afternoons from here on planned, she said. Turning around and walking backwards, she stuck out her tongue. So what actually brought you here, Naruto? He raised a brow, honestly, he asked, putting his hands into his pockets and watching her walk. Her nod only made him smile. You, he said. I know that much, I'm obviously so amazing that you must come visit me every day. Her playful tone was almost too noticeable. Anything else? She continued, beginning to look skeptical. Naruto chuckled. Always the smarter one of the bunch. I was wondering if you wanted to get something, he said. Sakura remembered the time, and her papers in her hand, though none really seemed to matter. Well, it's 3 o'clock, which means we've already had lunch, and dinner will come soon, so what do you have in mind? He shrugged, noting an upcoming object behind her. Maybe ice cream? He tried, flicking his eyes upward to see who it was, only to stop in his tracks as Sakura bumped into it. Sakura spun around, just about to give whoever she bumped into a firm talking to, only to find herself bowing her head and mumbling an apology. Sorry, Hokage-sama, she said, glancing at Naruto with a death glare. I wasn't watching where I was going. Minato gave a weak chuckle. No, I should have stopped and moved. After all, I wasn't looking either, he said, putting the papers he held in his hands into his pocket. I was actually looking for you, Naruto? Naruto gave up his silent apologies to the still bowing girl beside him and looked to his father. Right now? He asked, somewhat of a whine. Minato raised his eyebrows. Why? Was I interrupting anything? He asked, trying to seem innocent. The look on his son's face told him yes, but the look on Sakura's told him she was about to give the blonde a firm beating. Maybe he should reschedule? No, he shouldn't. Besides, it'd be quick. Come on, Naruto, it'll only be a minute. Naruto sighed and looked to Sakura. Later? He asked, not caring about her glare. She only pursed her lips and squinted, glancing at her papers once more. If I've got the time, I'll find you. She said it as if she wouldn't come, but Naruto knew better. He nodded with another grin. Okay, see y'all later then, he said, following his father down the hospital halls. When they reached his office in the Hokage Tower, Minato went to his desk, sitting down without a sound. His eyes were piercing as he stared into his son's. Tell me, he began, folding his hands in front of him, tell me what you know about Madara. Naruto froze for a moment, looking at his father. Naruto knew about Madara, he knew him. But not in this life. What? Naruto asked, trying to seem innocent. Madara? He was an enemy ninja, killed by the first who. Stop the act, Naruto. Minato continued to stare. Answer me this. The bold Hokage leaned forward, as if he couldn't hear Naruto if he spoke. Are you my son? Naruto took a step back. Why yes, he said, of course I'm your son. What type of question is that? Naruto knew what his father was asking, or, he thought he knew. He hadn't discussed the matters of going back in time, he knew Kakashi had, but only Kakashi. Sakura, nor he, had spoken to the Yellow Flash about their previous lives. About themselves. For a minute, Naruto wanted to walk out the door, but he knew this was his father, and his piercing gaze was just that. A gaze. I am your son, Naruto Namikaze, son of Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, son of Minato Namikaze, brother of Emi Namikaze, ninja of the Hidden Leaf. Minato gave a nod, letting loose a breath, unheard by Naruto, but his lax shoulders didn't go unnoticed. Then answer my question, son. Tell me what you know about Madara Uchiha. Again, Naruto's body went cold. Did his father know he was from the past? Madara was unheard of. He was just an old ninja, someone who passed away, dead by the hands of the first Hokage. At least, in this world. Madara, Uchiha? Naruto sighed. It's been a while since I heard that name, since I spoke that name. Minato kept his gaze on his son. So, I've heard enough from Kakashi, now it's time I hear the truth from you. He closed his eyes, Naruto. Naruto sat down in the chair across from his father. Well then, how about I start from the beginning, he said, knowing there was no way to try and keep this act up any longer. I'm the Hidden Leaf's most unpredictable ninja, Nine-Tailed Fox Jinchuriku, hero of the shinobi world. He looked up, his eyes glassy, but not a sign of any tears. With a scratchy voice and a tender heart, he put up his fist, sticking out his thumb. Naruto Uzumaki. It had been a while since he said that. In a way, it felt good, it felt right. But it wasn't who he was anymore. True, he was Naruto Uzumaki, but just as with age, he grew out of the name when he entered this world. He was Naruto Namikaze, damn it. It didn't matter who he was, it mattered who he is. He knew his father knew this, and he knew that he, himself, knew it too. But then why did it sting so much to say those words? I see, Minato leaned back, his gaze less intimidating and more of a welcoming curiosity. I'm sorry I never spoke up about this matter before now. No, it's fine, Dad. After all, I should have been the one to speak up about it. Naruto sighed, ran his hands through his hair. I haven't really tried to think much about my old life, so forgive me if I'm a little tender around sharing it. Minato nodded, understandable. But please, I need to know about Madara Uchiha. Naruto gave an unsure glance. Why? Is something happening? Yes and no. You see, just because you three came back in time, it doesn't mean that Madara was banished from this earth. He is still out there, he didn't die when he and the first fought. What I'm getting at is, why is he still hiding? What is there to hide from? Naruto nodded. Yeah, I've been doing some thinking myself. He shouldn't know about us coming back in time, so I don't understand why he hasn't done the things he's done. Or, will do, I guess. With a frustrated sigh, Naruto continued. Honestly, I've been trying to forget about him and the rest of our enemies completely, thinking that maybe, just maybe, their ghosts won't haunt me. I get it, and I know that asking you this is probably only digging up dirt that's already been dug up, but maybe we missed something. Minato let his hands unfold and crossed his arms, leaning back more in his chair. Perhaps he's already played his move, we just don't see it yet. But don't you think we would have heard something by now? I mean, it's been 17 years since this whole thing happened. Technically 12 if you only count my memory, but still, why is he being so sneaky about it? In fact, why is he playing different cards this time around? Naruto asked himself, but Minato was listening. What was his first big move in your timeline? The Hokage asked, professional and serious. Naruto stopped to think for a bit, and when he looked up, he avoided his father's gaze. The night I was born. October 10th when Kyuubi attacked. Minato took in a deep breath, then let it go. Nothing happened when you were born, except for my hand being broken. Minato winced at the memory of his wife's crushing grip. Maybe I'm just overthinking this, but perhaps he's got someone inside Konoha, someone with eyes to watch. Another nod came from the younger blonde. Probably. But we can't assume everyone's a spy. It'll tear this village apart. Right, we'll look for unique behavior. Minato stood up, besides Guy and Lee. Naruto gave out a small chuckle. Yeah. Keep an eye out. And when you're on your mission next week, look for any signs of anything suspicious. I can't help but have a bad feeling. Minato put out his hand to shake his son's. Same, but we've made it this far, haven't we? Naruto grinned and met his father's grasp with a firm shake. Sorry to make this so sudden, and I know I'm cutting this conversation short, but I'm sure you'll come to me in time, if you want to. Listen, Naruto. Just because you're from another timeline doesn't mean I'm not your father. Naruto nodded, standing up to meet his father's height. Right, and remember this, I'm still your son. Always. You've got to be kidding me, Emi groaned, looking at her two teammates. There's no way I got stuck with you guys. Beside her were Konohamaru Saratobi and Shin Kakunoku. Both looked at her with peeved faces, but obviously more mad at each other than at Emi's words. Their arms were crossed over, eyes blazing, and teeth baring. You've got to be joking. There's no way I'm stuck with you, Shin. You're practically a bug under my foot. Konohamaru's face shoved in front of Shin's. In reaction, Shin's dark brown eyes narrowed. As if, grandbaby Hokage, you're just jealous that you aren't as strong as I am, and now you're gonna have to follow whatever I say. Shin stuck his nose in the air, turning away from the irate Konohamaru. Emi sighed, placing her palm over her forehead. You guys know this is a team, right? That means that we need to work together. Even our squad leader, who's a Junin, won't be constantly bossing us around, he's just part of the team. So you guys should shape up before you break up, she ordered, getting her hands dirty and pushing them away from one another. Konohamaru nodded. I would be fine with being a team, but I'm not fine with working with that thing, he yelled, pointing to Shin. Well, I'd be fine working as a team too, Konohamaru baka. But obviously you both need a whack in the head, Emi hissed, pulling them apart once more. Now both of you should quiet up and wait for our sensei too. So this is who I've got as a team. There was a click of the door closing and footsteps walking into the room that they were asked to wait in. Interesting. The man before them was tall, he had strangely colored hair, a grayish blue, and his eyes were a piercing black. I'm Kiritashi Numiya, your squad leader and sensei. He looked at them for a moment longer, letting the silent stares linger. It seems you know each other well enough. I'm sure introductions are unneeded. We'll meet outside of the schoolyard tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Emi let go of her new teammates and tried to say something to their new squad leader, but he was already walking out the door. Wait, the door shut, and the room fell silent. Outside the door, Kiritashi shoved his hands in his pockets, remembering his earlier conversation with the Hokage. Flashback. As Hokage, I'm ordering you to take care of your team, no matter the cost. And I'm asking as a father, that you teach my daughter well. Minato was sitting in his chair, a smiling gracing his face as he spoke. Kiritashi nodded, of course, Hokage-sama. I wouldn't dream of failing them, and I'll be sure to protect your daughter. I was planning on having Obito Uchiha lead this squad, but seeing as he's going to start a family of his own, it'd be unfair to ask him this. I'm sure he agrees. Minato stood up, a serious face plastered over. Thank you, Kiritashi, your work will be beneficial, I'm sure of it. Kiritashi smiled. I should be thanking you, Hokage-sama. It's an honor to teach your kin. He stood up and walked to the door, bidding his goodbyes to the Hokage. As the door closed, he lifted his sleeve. Damn it, he cursed. Black markings were growing along his arm, twisting and turning in an unpleasant pattern, a lime-green chakra leaking from the seal. Suddenly, his surroundings changed and a masked man was standing before him. I'm glad you're so trusted. The man looked up, piercing red eyes blazing through the holes of the face covering. You die, and my life belongs to you. Madara, he said, kneeling down. His eyes were piercing the ground and his fists held tight to his clothes. End of flashback. His eyes closed and his feet froze as his arm lifted to cover his face. I'm a traitor? That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.